My name is Tyler Fornes, and I am one of the co-hosts of the Good, the Bad, and the Hungy AEW podcast here on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. We take a broad scope approach to the world of All Elite Wrestling and the entire universe of Tony Khan. We talk about the big matches, the big stars, the promos, the storylines, and we also look at it from a big picture perspective. How are things going to change over the course of the next 10 years with AEW still in the picture? How are companies like WWE going to adapt and adjust to AEW? Are they going to be a similar way like they did with WCW in the late 1990s? Will there be a counterpunch? We talk about all of that and more on The Good, the Bad, and the Hungy every week on the Voices of Wrestling Network.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
You are listening to the Flagship podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
Hey, star-making performance. She's not wrong. The show's doing .11s. Nobody watches the show. Less people watch the show now than we're watching it before her star-making performance.
And Rich Craich.
If you're indifferent on apples, that's what a great fruit that you're just letting go by the wayside.
What is your fascination with apples?
They're fantastic. It's the fall. It's the apple season, man.
And we are live on the Flagship podcast. I am Rich. He is Joe. Joe, what's happening? How are you?
I'm great, Rich Craich. How are you?
I'm doing good. We did audio last night. We did Instant Reaction Live for the AEW Dynamite 5-year anniversary show. Talked some AEW TV deals as well. So I had a lot of fun doing that last night. We're right back here next day doing the Flagship. We're the best in the biz. Let's do it.
It's a great show last night.
Great show. Fantastic show. Dynamite, not so much, but our show, great. Our show was fantastic.
Yeah, Dynamite was fine.
Yeah.
Disappointing show, I think. But if people want the details on that, of course, they could listen to the Instant Reaction Live that we did last night. If people are wondering why there was no Thursday Dynamite review, well, there's your answer. Captain Craich jumped in, and we did it live. Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Fuck
and
yeah,
we did it live.
Yeah, we did.
So we reviewed the show. We also went into extreme detail on the AEW media rights deal, which was announced initially by Variety yesterday, but then reported by a million different wrestling and non-wrestling sources afterwards. So you're probably not going to get that on this show either. But we did. What'd we do? We probably did at least a half hour.
Oh, I think it was a half hour, 45 minutes. Yeah. And there's and I put a little placeholder in, like if more details come out, we would talk about it on this show. And there's a couple of details, and I don't know when you want to do that, but there's a few things I noted that we did not talk about last night, and maybe a little bit more of a big picture discussion about like what this means for AEW moving forward and about the discourse around AEW or whatever. We touched on a little bit of that last night, but I thought, we could have a little bit of a chance to do some more on this particular show. But we got a lot to get to, though. There's a big time, a big amount of stuff that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the AEW TV deal, of course, a little bit of extra details on that. We're going to get you ready for WWE Bad Blood this weekend, this Saturday, of course. A classic 5-match Levesque show, or is it 1, 2? Yeah, it's 5. Five 5-match Levesque show. Classic WWE Paul Levesque era pay-per-view. We'll talk about NXT's debut on the CW, how that did viewership-wise. Review New Japan Destruction in Kobe. Get you ready for New Japan's King of Pro Wrestling coming up in about a week and a half or so as well. And then the World of MLW, which did actually stop. I regret to inform people, this World of MLW that never stops is going to stop tomorrow. The MLW Slaughterhouse was supposed to be tomorrow in St. Petersburg, Florida. Unfortunately, that has been canceled due to Hurricane Helena. So we will review MLW Pit-Fighters, but unfortunately, I know you're all coming for the preview of MLW Slaughterhouse. We can't do it. The show's not happening. So they have not announced a replacement yet for MLW Slaughterhouse. So I regret to inform you that the MLW preview has been canceled on this particular flagship.
Hold on a second. I thought the world of MLW never stopped.
I thought so too. And then I saw this tweet and I was like, surely that a hurricane, some tropical storm cannot possibly stop MLW, but apparently, yeah, it was able. Yeah, it's a pretty bad hurricane. A pretty bad hurricane. It appears to have stopped the world of MLW, which I thought could never be stopped and would never be stopped, but it stopped temporarily, at least this weekend for MLW Slaughterhouse. So
very, very destructive hurricane. I'm not familiar with the all the geographical areas that the hurricane affected. So I'm assuming they were running somewhere that really got hit hard.
They were in St. Pete. Yeah, they were in St. Petersburg, Florida. Yeah, St. Petersburg's been pretty bad. A lot of. I think it's not quite as bad as like North Carolina. Like that seems to be the worst part right now. Is that Asheville, North Carolina area? That seems real bad. And I know that area pretty intimately because I drove to South Carolina many times. With the nurse, and we always drove in that route, always passed Asheville, always stopped in Asheville, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, to see the destruction there is like, holy crap. And yeah, St. Petersburg, they had a lot of flooding and a lot of issues there, but I think it was probably just, and they did this like last week. I think they did this last weekend and basically just said, you know what, forget it. We're not even going to bother trying to get everybody over there, trying to get everything. It seems kind of, it you don't want to be like, well, hey, come to our wrestling show. It's like, hey, you don't have power. Right, oh, that's too bad. Come to our wrestling show. MLW Slaughterhouse. Slaughter and the show too. Right. The show being called MLW Slaughterhouse probably doesn't help matters either. It's not like, hey, come to, our charity show Slaughterhouse and see what we're going to present. So probably the right move, but yeah, unfortunately, the long anticipated Akira Mads Cruel Kruger Weapons of Mass Destruction match will unfortunately have to wait. I now see very much why they didn't want to run Slaughterhouse and have a Weapons of Mass Destruction match in a area that just recently got upended by a hurricane. That's probably the right move.
Yeah. Well, and the people there probably aren't so concerned in the fallout of a hurricane about going to an MLW show. So
right. They're not. Kojima and Ultimo Guerrero isn't exactly on the top of their mind right now. It's on the top of my mind, as it always is. But for everybody else, probably not. So yeah. But we'll get to Pit-Fighters. We'll get to Pit-Fighters later. But I don't know. What do you want to start with this week? Because obviously a lot of people, and now we've become the go-to for sports deaths as well. It's not only just wrestler deaths. Now when sporting legends pass away, people look to us and they go, oh man, I can't wait. The Flagship's going to do, obituaries about these people. And you know what? This week we had two heavy hitters, man. Pete Rose and Dikembe Mutombo. And we're not, if you don't like the banter, you don't like the sports shit on the show, I just got to tell you right now, you're probably going to want to skip ahead. What would you say, 30, 40 minutes? Comfortably
40 minutes.
It's Pete Rose and Dikembe Mutombo. Yeah, you're right.
30, 40. Are these going to be abbreviated? Like what do you Pete Rose is also, hold on now. Pete Rose is a WWE Hall of Famer.
That's true. There's a wrestling connection. You're right. We can what we'll do is to keep you all here, keep all you non-sports fans in here. We're just going to interject thoughts about his WWE career in between thoughts about his sports career. I got nothing on Dikembe.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Hall of Fame, WWE Hall of Famer. I don't know if Dikembe Mutombo ever.
He has no wrestling connections.
I'm not aware of.
I know of, but Pete Rose's wife, his first wife, Carolyn, was also a wrestling promoter. There's a lot of Pete Rose.
I didn't know that.
So,
oh my God, there we go.
First one. No. Hold on. I get confused because he had a wife named Carol and he had a wife named Carolyn. Whichever one was the first wife that he was married to during the Big Red Machine days, and I believe that's Carolyn. She was a professional wrestling promoter in the southern Ohio area near Cincinnati and northern Kentucky, I believe. So
look at that.
Pete Rose was a big time wrestling fan. So it's not like, okay, so I think most people realize the reason he's in the WWE Hall of Fame is it was a publicity stunt because obviously he's banned from the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Correct.
So they taking advantage of that during, one of his many attempts to get reinstated into baseball. He was banned from professional baseball and banned from the Baseball Hall of Fame. And during various points over the last 40 years since his gambling scandal broke in, I guess it would have been 1989, Pete Rose was not so much in recent years, but he's constantly in the news whenever he would apply for reinstatement and those sorts of things. So basically, whenever there was a new commissioner, he would try to get reinstated. And it never worked out for him for a variety of reasons. He's very stubborn. We could do 3 hours on that alone on the gambling scandal. But WWE took advantage of the publicity around Pete Rose trying to be reinstated and the controversy around him not being in the Hall of Fame by putting them in their Hall of Fame. But
yeah, it was 2004. I looked
wasn't-
it up. It was 2004, and that's the year that he finally, once and for all, admitted, I believe in his book, that he gambled on baseball. That was his first time actually coming forth and saying, yes, I did gamble on baseball. I did it. Because before it was always, careful, ways to kind of get around ever admitting that he did it without
not careful. He flat out said he never bet on baseball.
Yeah.
He up until that point refused to admit that he bet on baseball, and he would flat out deny that he bet on baseball for what years later he would say he was just getting bad advice from lawyers and advisors who told him to deny, just deny it. That obviously didn't work out for him. And, in 2000, he even got criticism in 2004 when he finally admitted it, because a lot of people were like, you're only doing this to sell books now. You can see right through this, And then he did the interview with, I think Charlie Gibson. I think that was the news reporter on ABC, where he admitted it on air. But again, that was when he was doing the junket to sell his book. So, look, Pete Rose, I've heard a lot of people over the last few days eulogizing him. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say that Pete Rose has a complicated legacy, right? You keep hearing that term. I don't think Pete Rose's legacy is complicated at all. In fact, I think Pete Rose's legacy is very simple. I think sometimes people say complicated legacy when they really mean to say that someone is simply controversial, or there's nothing complicated about this. Between the lines, Pete Rose was a great baseball player, an all-time great baseball player, depending on how loosely you want to define that. Is he an inner circle Hall of Famer? Is he Willie Mays, Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron? No. So he's not an inner circle pantheon all-time great. Is he one of the 25 best baseball players of all time? Probably not. Is he one of the 50 greatest baseball players of all time? Yeah, maybe. Is he one of the 100 greatest baseball players of all time? Yeah, I think you could squeeze him in the top 100.
Oh, no, I think he's unquestionably top 100. No doubt
more
about
hits than anybody that ever lived.
Yeah, 17-time All-Star, more hits than anybody that ever lived, 3-time World Series winner. He's in the top 100 for sure.
And MVP, Rookie of the Year, and an earned MVP. Not one of those cheesy. He had an 8.5 WAR season when he won MVP. You know what I mean? So it's not one of those MVPs that was stolen because people didn't have a great understanding of stats when he won it. And he earned the Rookie of the Year. He beat out Ron Hunt. They had similar numbers, but, Rose scored over 100 runs. He was a worthy Rookie of the Year winner. And obviously the all-time hit leader. So I think he's one of those guys who's both overrated and underrated at the same time, because a lot of people will tell you that Pete Rose was a compiler and he wasn't that great of a player. Well, that's not true. He was a great player. But at the same time, I think people who might not be as intimately familiar with baseball as you or I might be surprised to find out that he's not an inner circle guy. He's not Babe Ruth. He's not Willie Mays. He's not Mickey Mantle. He's not Hank Aaron. He's not in that class of player. But he's still someone I would consider an all-time great if you're broadening the definition of someone who undoubtedly would be a Hall of Famer if it was just based on play. There's no question. He'd be, an easy first ballot Hall of Famer and probably one of the 100 greatest players of all time. But so I think in that sense, because he was such a big celebrity in the 70s and 80s, and because he was so popular, there might be some less informed fans who do overrate him. But I think there's a lot of fans who underrate him too and try to undercut what he did on the field. And the other facet of that is, and this is hard to describe if you've never seen him play, there's probably aren't more than 5 professional athletes, period, in the history of the world who played harder than he did. And it's hard to articulate what that means. Pete Rose, he was obsessive and compulsive and maniacal in many different facets of his life. Okay, he was a compulsive gambler with a disease, and it ruined his life. He was a compulsive liar, and it ruined his life. And he had a compulsive, almost maniacal, just desire to win. Okay. And the best way I can describe it would be you hear stories about Michael Jordan, of how Michael Jordan would get mad at teammates if he lost a card game. Pete Rose is the kind of guy who probably wouldn't let his kids beat him in tic-tac-toe. He just had to win almost to a fault. And he played the game in such a way that he never threw away an at-bat. It could be 10-0 in the bottom of the seventh, and he was going to grind out his at-bats and try to get on base. There are stories with that big red machine team in the 70s that won the 2 World Series. They went to 4. They won to, one of the greatest baseball teams of all time with some of the greatest players of all time. And, with guys like Pete Rose and Johnny Bench tells stories of there would be guys that would come to spring training and the players would identify them as not willing to just completely sell out to win. And they would go to the front office and have those guys thrown off the team. I mean, this was just, Pete Rose was maniacal about winning. You'd see it, the famous headfirst slides, which everybody sees, the famous photo. There's one famous photo of the headfirst slide. The brawl with Buddy Harrelson in the 1973 playoffs when he did the takeout slide into second base, and they got in a fight on the field. A fight which, by the way, the Met fans, when Pete Rose went out to left field, at the bottom of that inning, and they were booing and throwing batteries and throwing objects at him, Sparky Anderson had to call the team off the field, and the Mets had to send Tom Seaver, Willie Mays, who was on the Mets at that time, Rusty Staub, Yogi Berra, who was all the most popular Mets, had to go out to left field to calm the fans down because the Mets were going to have to forfeit the game because they were throwing batteries at Pete Rose, and they wouldn't let the game continue because of the takeout slide and the fight that he got into with Buddy Harrelson in the top of the previous inning. So that was just an absolute wild scene. And then of course, the Ray Fosse incident at the All-Star game, where, again, younger fans might not be able to wrap their head around this, but Pete Rose barreled over Ray Fosse, the catcher on the American League All-Star team, at home plate collision, separated his shoulder. Ray Fosse's career was never the same again, all to score the winning run in a meaningless All-Star game.
An All-Star game, yeah. And that's in an era where they did try harder in the All-Star game, but not that hard.
Not that hard.
Whereas,
like, even then he was criticized. Even in that era where they tried to win those games, he was criticized for that. They're like, Pete, you got to take it easy. It's an All-Star game. You effectively ended this guy's career, barreling over home plate. Pete Rose would draw walks and sprint to first base.
That's what I was going to bring up. I was going to bring up if you want the best representation of a guy that just always tried hard and was always working hard and always, very maniacal, like you said, very unhealthy, addictions and unhealthy like desire to and need, and not even a desire, a need
to compete and win.
And to compete and win would be the running to first base and a walk. And nobody does that. And what's interesting too is it's like baseball is a sport where, people that aren't aware about baseball and aren't really baseball fans, it's one of the rare sports where I don't know that you can try harder. You know what I mean? Trying harder doesn't necessarily help you in baseball. You can, in basketball, you can effort can go a long way in basketball. Effort can go a long way in football. Effort can go a long way in soccer. Effort can go a long way in a lot of other sports. In baseball, it's a lot of times it's like you can try harder, but it's like sometimes you can't throw harder by trying harder, and sometimes you can't swing better by trying harder. In some cases, you're told not to. Yeah, in some cases, you're told, calm down, chill out a little, just, focus, because this small ball is coming at you at 90 miles per hour, and you have 0.1 seconds to react to it. So don't be, all wound up. Focus on the ball. And for pitchers, same thing. You're trying to get this little tiny ball into this little glove, in this little area, and keep it away from the batter. So you don't have to necessarily try harder. You just have to focus on what you're doing at that exact same time. But Pete Rose wasn't that. He was all hustle, all try, and all that sort of stuff. And people know him as Charlie Hustle. That's the nickname that funnily enough, if people don't know about the Charlie Hustle nickname, he kind of made it his own. He kind of adopted the Charlie Hustle, and you might think of that as, people thought this guy, tried really hard, and they called him Charlie Hustle. That was not a term of endearment. That was other players making fun of him.
It started off as mockery. Go ahead and tell the story.
Yeah. So it's the New York Yankees. I think you know the specifics. It's Mickey Mantle and that crew.
Spring training game.
Yeah, that era of the Yankees.
So Rose came up, just for context, Rose came up in the early 60s. His rookie year was 63 when he won the Rookie of the Year. So this would have been a spring training game in 62 or 63, around the time where he got called up. So Mantle was, at the end of his career, and the great Yankees were starting to come to an end, because by the late 60s, early 70s, the Yankees kind of had a poor period. But this was still the great Yankees that the Reds were playing in spring training.
Yeah, so the Yankees are playing them, and those other guys they're watching him, run around the bases and do all this sort of stuff, and they kind of look around at each other. And I think it's I don't know if Mickey Mantle's been credited with this, but one of the Yankees basically looks around and in a way to kind of make fun of this guy, goes, take a look at old Charlie Hustle over there. And then they just kind of were laughing at this guy, calling him Charlie Hustle, as like, this fucking idiot. What's he doing? Why is he running around so hard? It's spring training.
You get this 20-year-old geek in a spring training game,
right?
Sprinting to first base after walks and doing takeout slides,
diving for balls and stuff. And at that time, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I forget what the context of it was, but spring training in that era was, baseball players needed spring training. Well, we talked about it for preseason football, where preseason football games, they used to be like 6 weeks or whatever. And spring training used to be a lot longer as well, because guys would have to go there to get into shape, because it would be the off season would happen and you wouldn't think about baseball, do anything with baseball. And in some cases, particularly Mickey Mantle's case, you would spend the entire off season just drinking your liver to death. And they would have to come to spring training and sweat out all the liquor, get in shape, relearn how to play baseball or whatever. That's what spring training was. So it's like these other guys are sitting here probably nursing hangovers, taking it easy, just trying to get back in baseball shape. And here's old fucking Charlie Hustle out here running to first base. And that's where it came from, that's where the nickname. It wasn't like a term of, oh my God, he tries really hard.
It was a term of endearment. They were mocking him.
Yeah.
But he owned it. He said, all right, I'm Charlie Hustle. And a lot of that came from, there's a great Pete Rose documentary on the ESPN app. I think it's the ESPN app. It's a 4-parter.
I think it's Hulu. I think, sorry, HBO. It's on Max. It's on Max, I believe.
It's on Max? Okay.
Yeah.
It's the good and the bad. I mean, I wish the McMahon doc had been done the way the Rose doc was, because the Rose doc doesn't pull a single punch. You get the good and the bad with it. They let him hang himself. And we're going to get into the bad side of Pete Rose in a minute. The dichotomy of the between the lines and the outside the lines. But you learn a little bit about his father. Pete Rose was born and raised on the bad side of town in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he ended up playing for the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds have an unusual history of all-time great players who were born, raised, played high school baseball in Cincinnati, and then ended up playing for the Cincinnati Reds. Pete Rose, Barry Larkin, Ken Griffey Jr. Ken Griffey Jr., of course, because his father played for the Big Red Machine in the 70s.
Right.
Ken Griffey Jr. grew up in Cincinnati, but Barry Larkin, Pete Rose, and there's others. Very strange how that works out, totally unintentional, but Rose grew up in a bad part of Cincinnati with a very, you could argue borderline abusive father. His father was very competitive, just like him, an amateur athlete who, a local legend, sort of, every hometown has like the hometown legend athletes, the Al Bundy 4-touchdown in the game types. And he pushed Rose to just be uber competitive. And Rose tells a story of when he was a young player, his father would go to all his games until he dropped dead. And Rose went 3 for 4 or something. And he asked his dad how he did. And his dad said, on that ground out, you didn't hustle to first base. And if you ever embarrass me, yourself, or this city like that again, I'll disown you. And, that's the kind of father he grew up with, which, guy goes 3 for 4, has a great game, but didn't run out a ground ball, and his father's all over him. So, and if you watch the doc, he goes into more details about how his father put so much pressure on him and raised him to be that uber competitive guy. And it seems like he was always just trying to please his father. And so many problems in so many people's lives can be traced back to issues with their father.
Speaking of the Mr. McMahon doc,
back to McMahon,
speaking of that documentary. Yeah.
And that's, where Rose thinks, and where a lot of people think that Rose got this maniacal competitiveness that really The only comparison I can make is Jordan, because it seems like you hear the anecdotes about Jordan and they're very similar, right? And Jordan too had the addictive personality. Jordan too with the gambling.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's notorious stories with Jordan with these competition hungry, maniacally competitive people often extends into gambling because that's another way to win. That's another way to compete.
Right.
That's another way to get that rush of winning.
Right. Jordan would bet guys on if his bags were going to come out first in the airport on like the conveyor, you know, a baggage
and
claim.
not in a friendly, fun way.
And then like get mad at people if they didn't want to bet him. And other people are like, brother, I don't make what you make. Like, you know, I think other Bulls have talked about in the Jordan Rules, which is a great book by Sam Smith. If you want to read it, you know, they talk about getting on team planes, and Jordan's doing these like $25,000, you know, poker hands and getting mad when the other guys don't want to do it. And they're like, brother, that's like half my salary this year. Like that's what you made in, you know, that's, you know, your daily intake from your Nike deal. I don't make that kind of money, man. I'm not you. So he would like, he'd get mad. Oh, what? You're not tough enough. You're not. You know, you don't want to bet. And no, Jordan, I don't have that money. Even if I was confident in my poker skills, I don't have $25,000 just lying around to bet on this particular hand or whatever. So yeah, it's that personality, that maniacal, addictive personality that can extend, you know, beyond just the you know, sports arena and into, you know, real life.
Winning on the field's not even enough for these guys. They have to. It leaks into the rest of. You know, they're you know, and often it's expressed through gambling, you know, and Rose had gambling issues his entire life. But you know, from his tough upbringing with the tough father, and then, you know, but again, between the lines, nobody, it's hard to explain. Like when he moved to first base, when the third out of an inning would be made on a ground ball, you know, and he would field the throw at first base. He would take the baseball and spike it into the ground and then run into the dugout. And basically to say, fuck you, the inning's over. You know, like, fuck you, you're done. And then he'd run to the fucking dugout, you know, after spiking the ball into that artificial turf in Riverfront Stadium, and it would bounce up, you know, 15 feet or whatever. Guy was a psychopath on the field. You know, it was almost psychopathic how badly he wanted to beat you and how badly he wanted to win. And how he would talk about never throwing away an at-bat. You know, it's the middle of the summer in fucking Atlanta, and you're down 7-0 in the 8th inning, and it's 110 degrees on the field. We all know that most baseball players in that scenario, they're going up there and swinging at the first 3 pitches they see. You know that, Rich. You're a baseball fan.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, they want to get the fuck out of there.
You've seen it. We've all seen it. Yeah, we've all seen it.
Yeah, but Pete Rose would grind out every fucking at-bat, and he would talk about how I never give up an at-bat. That pitcher's my enemy, and I'm getting on base, and this game isn't over until that 27th. He's a psychopath, and he was a winner. You know, those Reds teams, again, they went to 4 World Series. And it's funny because before they won in 75, you know, there was starting to be some chatter that, hey, maybe these Reds are chokers. You know, they lost in 70. You know, they lost lost in 72. They lost in 70 to Baltimore. They lost, and I watched that whole World Series is on YouTube. They lost in 72 to Oakland, and then they lost in the playoffs in 73 to the Mets. That's the series where he got in the fight with Bud Harrelson. He hit the game-winning home run the game before, and then they ended up losing that series to the Mets in 5. That series, but Rose played great. He hit like 400 in that series, and then, you know, so by the time 75 rolled around, they had lost a bunch of years in a row, but they won the World Series in 75. He won the World Series MVP in 75. They won the World Series in 76. They swept the Yankees, and they established themselves as one of the great teams of all time. And, you know, then in 1980, he went to the Phillies and won another World Series. And then in 83, Joe Morgan and Tony Perez joined him in Philly. A lot of people don't remember this. Perez was a bench player, I think, and Morgan was at the end of the line. They were all at the end of the line. But, you know, he went to another World Series in 83 with the Phillies, with Morgan and Perez, but they lost that World Series to Baltimore. So, you know, the guy was – the other thing about Rose is he used to like to say that he won more baseball games than Joe DiMaggio played in. And Joe DiMaggio won like 9 World Series. So it's like that's how Rose was just a winner. He was always on. His teams were never bad. His teams were always contenders. And again, as far as between the lines, there's no denying his greatness. People like to talk about how Hank Aaron, if you take away every home run that Hank Aaron ever hit, he still had 3,000 hits, right? Which is an amazing
it's unbelievable
statistic. You know, for Pete Rose, if you take away every extra base hit that he ever had, every double, triple, and homer, he still had 3,200 hits. The guy hit 3,200 singles.
Yeah.
He had 3,200 singles. Think about that. He's the all-time leader in I know he's the all-time leader in at-bats and plate appearances. He's the all-time leader, obviously, in hits, 4,256 hits.
Yeah, it's games, it's games, plate appearances, at-bats, and hits. So it's longevity. Okay. Yeah, games as well.
He a lot of people who don't like Rose, and we'll get into why people don't like Rose in a second, will try to tell you that Ichiro is the real hit king, because if you add up Ichiro's major league hits and Japan hits, it eclipses Rose's 4,256. But that's a crock of shit too, because if we're counting professional hits, Rose had 400 to 500 minor league hits, and he eclipses Ichiro even if you add in Ichiro's Japanese hits. So anyway you slice it, Rose is the hit king. I think counting non-major league hits is nonsense anyway. He's the all-time major league hit leader. He's the all-time professional hit leader, even if you want to go down that road. As I said, MVP in what year? He won the World Series MVP in 75. He won the league MVP in 73. 8.5 WAR season. He had another 7 WAR season. He won the Rookie of the Year in 63. He led the league in hits 7 or 8 times. He led the league in doubles 4 or 5 times. He led the league in on-base percentage. He didn't like to walk, but he would take a walk. He would say, I prefer to get a hit, but he would walk, and he did lead the league in on-base. Yeah, 375 lifetime on-base percentage. Led the league in batting a couple of times, led the league in runs scored a number of times. And, he's durable. He wasn't fat. Look, he got every ounce out of his ability. He couldn't run, but he stole, almost 200 bases. He wasn't a great fielder, but, I think he did win a couple Gold Gloves early in his career when he moved to, he very quickly moved down the defensive spectrum. He started as a second baseman, but look, he wasn't like a great athlete in that sense. He quickly moved to the corners, corner outfield, and then eventually, he was the third baseman for those Big Red Machine teams that won the World Series, and then eventually he moved to first base, and then at the end of his career, he was player manager for the Cincinnati Reds, and that's when he got into trouble with the gambling and the Dowd investigation, which began in '89, and they revealed that he did in fact not only bet on baseball, but he bet on Cincinnati Reds games, and that's the most taboo thing that you can do in sports. I mean, is to bet not only on your own sport, but to bet on your own team. And so he's
while in charge of that team too. It's not. It's one degree even higher than that. Of course, obviously a player betting on their own team is rough, and you obviously don't want that. But particularly in baseball, there's very little that one person can do to dictate a game in many ways. Obviously, that would be a very cardinal sin if some guy was revealed to be betting on his own team or betting against his own team, whatever. But we saw it with obviously but with Pete Rose, what we saw with him. You are the manager. You're the guy controlling the lineups, controlling the pitching, controlling the substitutions, controlling all that sort of stuff. And that guy is betting on the team, whether positively or negatively, it doesn't really matter. That's still, that is as taboo gets.
Yeah, he was, player manager, and he was betting on the team. He was, and betting on all kinds of other sports as well. But, betting on baseball and betting on his own team. Now, there's never been any evidence that he bet against his own team. There's never been a shred of evidence to that effect. Now, John Dowd, who conducted the investigation, he says he believes that Rose bet against the Reds, but he didn't have any evidence to back that up, but he just personally believes it. Because Pete Rose is, on top of being a maniacal competitor and a compulsive gambler, is also a compulsive liar. He spent his whole life lying. It was hard enough to get Pete Rose to admit that he gambled, and Dowd believes that, although it wasn't uncovered, that he likely bet against the team. Not many other people believe that. People that know Rose can totally buy the idea that he was betting on Reds games and betting on probably, everything under the sun. But nobody who knows Rose, even the people who don't like him, think that he would ever bet against his team because it's so against what he is.
The win at all costs. Yeah, the win at all cost mentality. It doesn't vibe with trying to lose on purpose.
With like he would never, not even for money, he would never lose on. They can't imagine him losing on purpose, right? But what a lot of people will say is even if he never bet against the Reds, if he was betting on them and betting on them frequently, on the nights that he's not betting on them, he's effectively betting against them. Even if he's not losing on purpose, you're going to manage the games differently when you have money on them versus when you don't have money on them, in terms of how you're going to handle your pitchers, how you're going to handle your bullpen. If you're managing a game today that you don't have any money on, but you know you're going to bet tomorrow, aren't you going to use your bullpen a little differently and save your big guns for the next day? So there's a lot to get into that's really granular baseball stuff. But the point is, the investigation concluded that he did in fact bet on Reds games. He was mixed up with all kinds of illicit people and criminals, and he was involved in very shady business dealings at the time as well. It was a big mess. And the deal was he would be placed on the permanent ineligible list in exchange for, and admit that there was a factual reason for the ban, and in exchange, MLB would agree to not make any formal finding that he gambled. He agreed to that.
Yeah.
He agreed to the permanent ban, and that's important.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. That's kind of gotten lost to time, and it's more that, one baseball commissioner, Paul Giamatti or whatever, basically said, "You're done forever," and I don't care, but it wasn't that. That was the agreement that Rose agreed to. That was the plea bargain that he agreed to. Do not investigate, and I will take this, I think you said
Paul Giamatti, which is funny because
not Paul Giamatti. No.
It's Bart Giamatti, but they're related though. I think it's his father.
Are they actually related? Okay.
I'm almost I think let me try to see if I can pull that up.
Yeah, it's not.
But
it's not
it was
that. Now that would be incredible. What a turn in this story if we tell you that actor.
No, pull that up. I'm almost positive that it's his father, or I'm almost positive they're related in some way. And
I'm not seeing that. No, I'm on personal. It does not say that, but.
Pull up Paul Giamatti.
I'm looking up Paul. Yeah. It doesn't. It says parents. No, Bart. Yeah, parents. Bart Giamatti. Yeah. There you go. All right.
Yeah. Bart Giamatti was the commissioner of baseball, and he's the father of the famous actor Paul Giamatti.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is why Rich
Bart was the commissioner, not Paul. Paul was not the commissioner of baseball when he was 7 years old. So.
And when he suspended Rose, he died like 3 days later or something.
Yes, 6 days later.
A massive heart attack. 6 days later, he died. He was a chain smoker and not a man who was in good health, and he dropped dead of a heart attack just days later. And Faye Vincent took over, and every commissioner that took over from that point forward, Rose would try to get reinstated and get rebuffed and turned down, and it would always be this big. Now I'm surprised because in the wake of his death, I would say that 99% of the sports pundits and big name people too, whether it was Dan Le Batard, whether it was Chris Russo, whether it was Dan Patrick, the heavy hitters and people with credibility, almost universally, they think it's a terrible mistake that Major League Baseball never reinstated him and allowed him to go into the Hall of Fame. I disagree with that. And I'm a Reds fan. Rose was never my favorite player. My favorite players were Dave Concepcion, then Eric Davis, then Barry Larkin, then Joey Votto, and away you go. But I was a Reds fan, and I obviously appreciate the way Rose played. Rose broke the cardinal rule. You cannot bet on the sport you participate in. I'm sorry, you cannot do it. You cannot bet, especially as the manager of a team on that team. It's to me, it's a complete non-starter. The lifetime ban to me, and people are trying to get cute saying, well, he's dead now, so the lifetime ban should be lifted. Look, the guy not only broke the worst possible. If a sport doesn't have credibility with the fans, a sport cannot exist. And if the people involved in a sport are gambling, a sport cannot have credibility. You cannot have people on the field. You cannot have people in the office. You cannot have anybody associated with these games gambling. You can't have it. And Johnny Bench and Pete Rose didn't get along for years because Johnny Bench felt the same way I do. And Johnny Bench's stance was always, look, if we reinstate Pete, what are we telling our kids? What are we telling people? It's just that then there's no rules. You can't bet on baseball, period. You just can't do it. And Pete had a contentious relationship with Bench for a lot of years. And, I heard Bench the other day talking that they eventually patched it up a couple years ago at a card show, and Pete apologized to Bench and told him he understood and he wanted to make amends. And they have patched it up, thankfully, before Pete died. But if you notice, Pete was at a card show the day before he died. He died on a Sunday. He was at a card show on a Saturday, and he took a bunch of pictures with the rest of the surviving Big Red Machine, because Joe Morgan's dead. But George Foster, Tony Perez, Dave Concepcion, who am I missing? Ken Griffey. Bench was at that card show. Bench didn't pose for any of those pictures with Rose. Okay. And that, even though they patched things up, they always, because Bench was very hardcore about, because Morgan and Perez and Concepcion and Griffey, they would always try to lobby to get Rose reinstated and get Rose into the Hall. Bench never did that. Bench felt strongly that Rose didn't belong in the Hall of Fame. And I feel strongly that Rose probably shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Would I lose sleep if they put him in the Hall? I wouldn't. I'm not that steadfast about it to where I'm hard line, but I understand why he was never reinstated. You can't break that rule. Okay? That's the one rule you can't break. And I'm not moved either by this argument that people make now that, oh, well, you can't turn on a baseball game without a DraftKings ad. And I don't care. I'm not moved by that. That means nothing to me. That's for the fans. Okay? If you play baseball, I don't even find it hypocritical myself. You might feel differently, Rich. But my stance on that is I don't find it hypocritical. If you are an athlete, you cannot gamble. I don't give a shit how much money these leagues are taking from the gambling entities. Okay? I don't find it hypocritical, and that argument doesn't move me. Because you know why? The players are getting a piece of that money too. The players are getting a piece of that DraftKings money. The players are getting a piece of all this too. So and even if they weren't, it wouldn't move me. When you have certain people with certain occupations can't do certain things.
Yeah, you got to draw the line there too. Yeah, I mean, it gets real weird and it gets real bad. And there's been people that have already been caught. There was a minor league baseball player that got caught last year. I forget his name. And then
guys thrown out of the game.
And then the NBA guy recently. He was Michael Porter Jr.'s brother. I forget his exact name, but he was found.
Porter, he was throwing games. He was throwing props.
Yeah, he was definitely throwing games. Yeah, there is clear evidence of him. Yeah, betting on his own props and throwing games and doing all that sort of stuff and going on Discords and telling people about what he was going to do on that day or whatever. I mean, that you got to draw the line somewhere. And I agree.
You can't.
I agree that the sports have now made that line a lot closer, probably a lot closer than they need to, and a lot closer than I'm comfortable with, because I find it absolutely. I find the ubiquity of betting in sports is absolutely. I can't stand it. I think it's horrible, and it ruins the product for me in a lot of ways. As I have to, an NBA game's playing, and then we're going to go to Chuck and Kenny, and they, lazily being like, I think they're going to cover the spread. Yeah, what do you think, Kenny? Yeah, I think they're going to cover the spread. It's like, oh, my God.
I'm watching a baseball playoff game right now, and the win probability is listed with the score. I don't need that.
I don't need that. No, I hate that. So I agree that the line has gotten too close. I agree the line's gotten too close, but there still needs to be a line there, and that line is if you're playing in the games, you can't bet on the games. I'm sorry.
You can't bet on. You can't let these guys bet, and I don't find it hypocritical. Okay, I don't. That's for the fans. There's certain occupations where you are precluded from doing certain things. If you're a kindergarten teacher, you can't have an OnlyFans. Okay, I'm sorry, you can't. If you're a professional athlete, you cannot gamble. Period. I don't give a shit who the leagues are taking money from. You can't gamble. And Pete Rose did all this 40 years ago, long before they were taking money before gambling was legal outside of Las Vegas. So no, I shouldn't say that I'm anti Pete Rose being put in the Hall of Fame, but what I should say is I'm not. What's the way I'm trying to phrase this? I'm not bothered by it. It's fair. I think the punishment is fair.
Well, and it's the punishment that he accepted, for better or for worse. And
he accepted it.
Yeah.
And over the years, he was awful in the way he handled it. He continually lied until 2004. Okay. And then he moved to Las Vegas.
Yes.
He didn't show any contrition. He's been living in Las Vegas for 30 years.
And was a constant openly gambling and a constant on the autograph scene as well, and would autograph whatever the hell you want him to autograph. You wanted to autograph a poker chip or whatever, he'd do it for sure. He in a way, he never shied away from it in that way. And you know what? I don't have a problem with him moving to Vegas and
betting on horse racing and betting on the NFL and betting on baseball if he wants to. But that's not how you show contrition. He showed no contrition over 40 years, other than when he wanted to sell a book. Look, I love Pete, but you can't. Look, there's no, he didn't work hard to reverse what many. Look, if he would have been more contrite from the start, and if he would have been more honest from the start, they probably would have lifted his ban at some point, which is crazy because there's no precedent for lifting that ban. Joe Jackson's still banned. It was 100 years ago.
Right.
There's no precedent for it. And they would have lifted it for him because people want to like Pete. But this is why I don't think his legacy is complicated. He has a very simple legacy. He is extremely admirable between the lines and one of the hardest working players in any sport of all time and a great player. Outside the lines, the guy was very unlikable. He's a compulsive liar, which is worse than being the gambling. I'll chalk that up to an addiction and a sickness, okay? Because I've seen that. And I've seen addiction, other kinds of addictions. We all have with people in our lives. But the compulsive lying, he did a stint for tax evasion, which might make him a hero in my eyes. But he did a stint for tax evasion in federal prison. He was an adulterer. He had the statutory rape accusation. Yep. He was always mixed up with seedy criminals and again, go watch the doc. The doc is fascinating.
There's strong evidence he was corking his bat at certain times as well, and he had a very close relationship with the guy. There's literal bats. There's literal bats. That's about as strong of evidence of a guy saying, "Yeah, here's a bat that Pete Rose used, and there's the cork." So that's pretty good evidence of it. Yeah, a close relationship with a steroid dealer and a cocaine dealer and stuff. It's there's a lot. There's a lot there. Not a choir boy.
Dealings with drug dealers.
Yeah, he's not a choir boy outside of the gambling, unfortunately.
Pete Rose was not an admirable figure outside the lines. That's why I don't see his legacy as complicated. Totally unadmirable outside the lines, a shady figure, a troubled man who had a lot of issues, but a lot of them self-inflicted. Okay? And, a great player between the lines. I don't have problems compartmentalizing those things. And I say that pretty often on this show. I don't have any problems with that, but I think a lot of people do struggle with that. Right? I can recognize Pete Rose as a great player and someone who absolutely would be a role model for my kids in terms of that's how you want to play baseball, as hard as you can. When I was growing up, my father used to tell me when I played sports, I'd be mad because I lost or didn't play well. My father would always say this to me, and it resonated, and I say it to my kids now. The girl with the gymnastics, the boy with his taekwondo, or whatever the case. My father used to say to me, look, did you leave it out there? Did you give every ounce of effort you had? And I'd say, yeah, I did. And he'd go, then I'm proud of you. It's all that matters. Did you give it everything you had? Just give it everything you have every time. There's always going to be someone better. You're going to lose. You're going to strike out. You're going to fail. Okay? But if you leave it all out there, if you leave everything you have on that field, I'm proud of you. And that's what I tell these kids. And that's what Pete Rose was between the lines. Outside the lines, terrible person. There's no denying it. And, even terrible people have good traits. You know where Pete Rose, in one way Pete Rose was great with the black players earlier in his career. You talk to Frank Robinson before Frank Robinson passed away. You talk to Vada Pinson. You talk to any of the black players on those Reds teams in the early 60s when it was still a very different world in that way.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in baseball. 15 years removed from Jackie Robinson. Okay? Pete Rose embraced the black players on the Reds when a lot of those old white players wouldn't.
No, yeah, I was reading something the other day about Reggie Jackson. And Reggie Jackson feels like a guy who seems more, doesn't Reggie Jackson feel a little more modern than what you think? But he was like drafted, and people were like, "Oh, you shouldn't draft a black player. Those guys aren't any good." Like at that time, and that's Reggie Jackson, Reggie freaking Jackson. Like dealt with he got drafted and had to go play in the American South. And I was and they're talking about how, and I'm thinking, Reggie Jackson it seems so late in baseball's history, but yeah, it wasn't like Jackie Robinson came and everyone, oh, okay, all right, great, we're good. The game is segregated, we're all good now. That's not what it was. It was, it was a very, very slow trickle, and even when the trickle was happening, it wasn't really embraced by a whole lot of people. So Pete, it's hard to believe that Pete Rose was in that era, because I think we kind of tend to you know, one thing that we always do, especially with civil rights stuff, is we show stuff in black and white, and that makes it easier to think it was long ago. You know what I mean? You see Jackie Robinson, it's always in black and white. You see Martin Luther King, it's always in black and white or whatever. And then once, you know, we get to color television, it's like, oh, okay, now all the good, bright and cheery times or whatever. And it's like, no, that shit was still going on in those days too. But yeah, Pete was always well known as being definitely an ally in a lot of ways.
An ally, yeah. The black players love Rose, you know, because Rose was good to the black, and it was important just for little things back then to go out to eat, to have a white guy with you, or to, you know, get your hotel room to have a white. It just made things so much easier.
Just to vouch. Yeah, no, he's with me. It's all good. You know, anything. Yeah.
You know, and Rose stood up for those guys, and you know, and those guys will all vouch for him in that way. And you know, there's a lot of stories out there how Rose would vouch for people in baseball, and you know, not everyone is just purely good or purely evil in this world. Okay, and Pete Rose had a lot of problems, and you know, the statutory rape thing. I mean, people our age and younger, we can't even wrap our heads around what the world was like. It was disgusting. That's one of the things that that's one area where society has advanced. Because for the first 80 years of this of the previous century, the first 80 years of the 20th century, you know, people our age and younger can't wrap our heads around how fucked up it was that grown men would just commonly and routinely have not only sexual relationships with underage girls, okay, but like marry them, and no one would bat an eye. Nobody would bat a fucking eye. And like famous people, like Elvis Presley started hitting on, what's his wife's name? Priscilla Presley when she was like 14. He started planting the seeds with her. Jerry Lee Lewis managed to married a 14-year-old that was his fucking cousin. You know, if you read any biography or autobiography of any rock star from the 50s to the 80s, you know, be careful who your fucking heroes are if that kind of stuff's going to bother you, because they all did it.
You definitely want to separate the art from the artists if that's something that bothers you, because yes, every musician, it seems, from musicians,
athletes, actors, and society just accepted it. We can't wrap our heads around that. It would be unheard. You'd be fired into the fucking sun, and rightfully so if you pulled that shit today. How old is Justin Bieber? Like 33, 34 years old or something like that? Could you imagine if Justin Bieber was dating a 16-year-old? No one would stand for that shit. We'd bury him under the fucking jail. For 80 years, we just accepted it. And this was a fucked up society, you know? And, you know, so it's like, it's like, people our age and younger, it's like we're mystified by it. We can't believe that it was just common, and it was so fucked up, you know. And you know, Rose first, he claimed that, you know, I thought she was 18, and then he backtracked that and said, well, I thought she was of the legal age, whatever the legal age was in Ohio, which I think it was 16 or something. Which why is the legal age of consent anywhere still 16 years
16,
old?
Yeah.
Can you answer that question for me?
I cannot answer that question for you, Joe. I cannot answer that. It is mortifying. Yeah,
do me a favor, if you don't have any in your family, go have a chat with a 16-year-old girl someday if you haven't had one in a while, and you tell me that person can consent to sex with a fucking 45-year-old.
It's fast because I have friends that are teachers, and you know, sometimes I'll go hang out with him, and these kids will come around, and I'm just thinking in my head, like, how does anybody, because these kids, I'm talking to these kids, and we're in different universes, we're in different worlds, we're on different planets. As I'm here having a legit, as a, you know, someone in their late 30s having a conversation with a 16-year-old, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know what I mean? It's like we're in different planets. We're our world. It's wild. And yeah, the idea and to think of any sort of consent is absolutely, it mortifies me.
It's just,
and
insane,
it was very regular and very all right, great. I mean, good God, watch Territory Wrestling. Good God, watch Territory Wrestling.
I was going to say, I remember Meltzer bringing it up like 7 or 8 years ago on one of his audios, saying that, you know, the wrestling business in the Territory days, it was just common for the wrestlers to have underage girlfriends in every city on the loop, and people got mad at Dave.
Right.
And it's like, Dave wasn't the one doing it. He's just telling you how it was.
Yeah.
But I understand, because again, people from our generation and our generations and younger, we can't wrap our head around it.
How common it was.
And Right, and they thought Dave was condoning it. Dave wasn't condoning it. Dave was just telling people how it was. And I can't believe it took society that long to come around on that. And we're in a place now in society
like 10 years. It's like it happened like 10 years ago.
It's really not that long ago.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's crazy though to think about that it took so long. I said the first 80 years of the 20th century. It was really like the first 90s.
Yeah,
it was the 90s.
It was definitely in the 90s. Seinfeld very famously, I think, had a 17-year-old girlfriend for a while there in the 1990s, which is
as a guy who was like in his late 30s or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and again, the tabloids would like treat it like a joke, like oh ha ha, there's Jerry with his
Jerry's gonna pick up his girlfriend from school, and like
Jerry's helping her with her homework, like jokes were made. Like we don't joke like. It took so long for people to say,
think of how long it took for R. Kelly. And let me tell you, anybody who pretends that the R. Kelly thing wasn't very well known by everybody everywhere for years and years and years, including, an album with the woman that he eventually secretly married, Aaliyah, when she was 16, her album that was called Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, with R. Kelly in the background as he
90s.
Produced the album.
Late 90s, right?
like 1995, 96, somewhere in that range, for sure.
Mid-90s, I saw.
Yeah,
and
well known. I mean, around the Chicago area, it was like well known that like R. Kelly would roll up to various schools in the Chicagoland area, and everybody would be like, "Oh, there's R. Kelly. All right, who's he picking up today? Oh, hey, have a good one. See you later." It's just like, and that was not that long ago, and it was really only like 6-7 years ago that everybody was like, all right, that's enough of R. Kelly. I think we're going to stomp this down. It is, it's unbelievable. Yeah, it is.
So look, I mean, that's my point. You add the statutory rape accusations to Rose, which he never has outright denied. He just tried to move the goalpost around with the age of the girl. And it's like, and you think that's the only one? I mean, I highly doubt that was the only one. That was just that was the lifestyle and the culture of famous people then, So it's like, I don't find his legacy complicated at all. Admirable on the field and, a very bad and troubled person off of it who had a lot of issues, many of which were self-inflicted. Whether it's the statutory rape or the adultery or the mixing it up with known criminals and the tax evasion and the gambling and the compulsive lying and, Pete also, he was just an uncouth guy. He was like, but to a lot of people, he was just the uncouth, fun uncle that you didn't want to get too close to.
Mm-hmm.
He's the uncle you sit with at Thanksgiving to watch the game, and he'll make some, inappropriate jokes, and he's the funniest guy in the room, but you don't want to go hang out at the dog track with that uncle. You know what I mean? You don't want to get too close to that uncle. You don't want to get too mixed up in that guy's life. That's kind of like what Pete Rose was to me. Al Michaels, who called Reds games in the early 70s, before he was replaced by Marty Brenneman, who then became the Hall of Fame announcer for the Reds. Rose befriended him in those days, and he used to take Al Michaels to the dog track after the games and introduce him to fucking ne'er-do-wells, and they'd fucking gamble. Dog track. Who goes? Listen. Nobody good hangs out at the dog track, Rich.
No, the dog. Some good people hang out at the horse track. Nobody.
The horse track. I'm not going to judge you if you go to the horse track. Okay, the dog track. I'm going to judge you.
Yeah, you are. You're probably a low life if you're at the dog track. I hate to say
you're
it.
Hanging out at the dog track with Santa's little helper. That's questionable behavior. Look at the Mets coming back.
I know. I didn't want to stop you as you were talking about statutory rape.
It's a live show, Rich.
To tell you about Pete Alonso with a dinger. Yeah.
We're talking about the gross 90-year history of statutory
I don't want to say,
rape.
oh yeah, Pete Alonso, big hit, yeah.
But anyway, just to kind of wrap this up, I don't find Pete's legacy complicated at all. It's very simple. You can say both things. You can be honest about Pete's life. And do I think Pete is one of history's great monsters, like a lot of people try to portray him? No. Do I think Pete was a shady character for a large portion of his life? And do I think most of Pete's troubles are self-inflicted? I do. Pete could have lived a better life. Pete could have got help for his gambling. The gambling ruined his life. The gambling led to the lying, which led to the adultery, which led to the underage affairs, which led to the gambling, led to getting mixed up with criminals and gangsters. And, he could have got help for the gambling, but, Pete never wanted help for the gambling. Pete was placing bets till the day he died. Guy moved to Vegas for a reason. And I'm not going to begrudge a guy for making a living, selling his autograph. He had to make a buck. I don't have a problem with that. I don't even have a problem with Pete moving to Vegas and gambling. But Pete has to understand that that's part of the reason Pete was never reinstated or considered for reinstatement, because he chose to keep living that life. And you make choices, right? I say you can teach your kids to play baseball like Pete Rose. You could also teach your kids to not live your life like Pete Rose. So it's not a complicated legacy to me.
And don't be a father like Pete Rose's father is probably a good method too.
Yeah. Now, by all accounts, Pete Rose was a great father to his kids, but Pete's dad was probably a cause of a lot of Pete's issues. There's that another. And Pete, look, and why Pete's so charming, and why I think a lot of the collective sports media is like, come on, let's take it easy on Pete, because Pete was charming, and guys like that usually are. When he got out of prison, and we'll move on to Mutombo after this. The day he got out of prison, when he did the 5-month stretch for tax evasion, okay? The first thing he did when he left prison, because he knew the media was following him around, his son picked him up, and his son, Pete Rose Jr., was a minor league baseball player who did get a cup of coffee in the majors. Never would have got that cup of coffee if he wasn't Pete Rose Jr. But
if he was Tom Thompson, I don't think he's getting 20 games in the majors, but he was Pete Rose Jr., so that helps.
A good minor league player, but not a major league player. But his son picks him up from prison. They go right to a batting cage. They go straight to a batting cage. Pete steps in the cage, okay? Dials that fucker up to the fastest fastball it can throw. And on the first pitch, out of prison at 49 years old or whatever the hell he was, I think he was 49 or 50, he rips a line drive right back at the fucking machine and bounces it off of the pitching machine, flips the bat, looks at the fans and the media, and he says, I still got it. And he walks off like a fucking G. He rips a 110-mile-per-hour line drive right back at the fucking machine, flips the bat, and walks off. That's Pete Rose in a nutshell. And he probably went right to the dog track.
And then got his paper and went to the dog track.
Right to the dog track. An all-time character.
Definitely.
Who did a lot of bad things and was a great player, and a WWE Hall of Famer.
Let's
great rivals.
Let's do it.
One of Kane's great rivals.
One of Kane's great rivals. Yes, first appears at WrestleMania 14. He was the guest ring announcer. They were in Boston, so he was making fun of, at that time you could make fun of Boston, for not winning World Series, and that's what he did. And then Kane, a heel. It was always kind of weird. I don't know why he did this, but it worked out anyway. Kane came out and tombstoned him, chokeslammed him, and tombstoned him, I believe. I think it was just a tombstone, but there you go. And then then after that, I think it was WrestleMania 15 that he came back and he was the San Diego Chicken in that one, if I remember correctly, and attacked Kane, but then Kane got him with another tombstone. And then at WrestleMania 2000, he once again came out and got beaten up and destroyed. And then I think one other time he got chokeslammed by Kane, and that was about it after that. But
one of those shows was in Boston.
14, WrestleMania 14.
And he had the famous line where he said he left some tickets for Bill Buckner, but he couldn't bend over and pick them up.
Yeah, which got a lot of at that time. That's heat in Boston at that time, man. 1998. Like, if you do that, you can't do that joke now. Nobody cares. But man, the word Bill Buckner. Oh, if you say that in Boston at any point prior to 2004, man, it's heat.
What a line. He couldn't bend over and pick him up. That great heel delivery too, right?
And he was good at it. Yeah, if he wanted to make his life in wrestling, it could have been that for sure. He would have definitely worked.
People don't know Bill Buckner. He didn't field a ground ball in the '86 World Series against the Mets because he didn't get down low enough. And the Mets came back and won that game, and then came back and won the World Series, where what a lot of people forget, though, I think it was a tie game.
Yeah, it was a tie game, and then they had another game after that or whatever. So yeah,
there was another game after that. So the story there with Buckner, though, which is funny, is all that entire season he would be replaced
right
in the late innings.
Right, he couldn't bend over anymore.
Right, knew that. So he could still hit because Bill Buckner was a great pure hitter. He could still hit, but he would be replaced in the late innings. I forget the guy's name on that team. If you pull up the team real quick, and I think Dave Stapleton, maybe I think it might have been Dave Stapleton was the backup first baseman on the '86 Red Sox, who would come in and play defense late in games for Buckner. That's who it was, Dave Stapleton. Okay. And Buckner told the manager, because they were, he's like, no, I want to be on the field for the final out. So they left him out there. So he wouldn't even have been on the field under normal circumstances, but because it was, they were about to win the World Series, he wanted to be on the field, and probably wanted a chance to make the final out, if it had been a ground ball or whatever. And maybe if they just had Dave Stapleton in the game, history's different, but who knows? But anyway, that's WWE Hall of Famer and not so complicated legacy, in my opinion, Pete Rose.
Definitely. Well, a man that has no complicated legacy whatsoever, Dikembe Mutombo, who also passed away this week. I won't go as long on Dikembe Mutombo, but he is... somebody asked me a little bit earlier on our Discord about Dikembe Mutombo. It was earlier this week when he passed away, and I basically said he was a way better human being than he was a basketball player, and he was a really fucking good basketball player too. But yeah,
you want to talk about a dichotomy between Pete Rose and Dikembe Mutombo. Dikembe Mutombo, right, one of the great humanitarians in modern sports history.
Right, yeah, a man who from the moment he was drafted into the league was working on figuring out a way to make living conditions and life better for people in his native Congo, in Africa, and across the world, and basically never stopped doing that until the day he died. So, yeah, that's a big difference from Pete Rose. Don't think Dikembe Mutombo was at any dog tracks. He spent all of his money building houses and opening foundations and opening hospitals and creating companies that would employ people in Congo and elsewhere. So yeah, that's what Dikembe was doing with his time, his free time, is becoming a great humanitarian. But yeah, a great basketball player as well, and unfortunately passed away at 58 years old due to brain cancer, which is way too fucking young, especially for somebody who was gave so much of their life for humanitarian efforts. It's like absolutely brutal that someone like that passes away. But a player that near and dear to your heart, because he played at Georgetown. He was one of the many in line of the great Georgetown centers of that era. Obviously you have your Patrick Ewing, Dikembe Mutombo, and then Alonzo Mourning comes right after that. Yeah,
that's right. It was Ewing and then Mutombo. Now Mutombo played with Mourning, and people think, but Mutombo was there a year before Alonzo Mourning.
Yeah,
but he didn't play much because John Thompson had just brought him over from Africa. He didn't know the game very well. So that freshman year, he didn't get a lot of run. So a lot of people think that Mourning and Mutombo came in the same time because Mutombo didn't get playing time until that second year. But yeah, Mutombo was there a year before Mourning, and they played together. And it broke my heart that one year they lost to UNLV in the second round because, man, it's, Mutombo and Mourning on the same team.
That
it was good luck scoring in the paint.
Right. Think of that. Think of those two guys, like these two great shot blocking, Mourning not as much as Mutombo, but Mourning was a good defender at that. Yeah, in college. He was when you're 7 foot tall and athletic and going to be, move on to become an NBA Hall of Famer, you're pretty damn good. So they had two NBA Hall of Fame centers playing at the same time in college. And that's when you had the rejection row where the fans made like a little section under the basket. That was essentially, just because these guys were just throwing every fucking ball that came anywhere near right out to the crowd every single time. But then you obviously
Othello Harrington and Othello Harrington, Roy Hibbert. You want to throw Don Reed in there? I'll do a little Don Reed.
Greg Monroe. Yeah, a little, not quite as tall and not as quite as dominant.
Greg Monroe was a slashing small forward in college who became a fat center in the NBA. So I don't know if we should count Greg Monroe, but we could rewrite history, right? We could say he was a center.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
But Hibbert and Othello Harrington for sure.
Those guys, those guys undoubtedly.
And they were good NBA players, not great NBA players like the first three. But yeah, Mutombo, helped establish Big Man U, and his son Ryan Mutombo, just played 3 years for Georgetown. He transferred to Georgia Tech this year for this upcoming season, but that legacy continued. And Alonzo Mourning's son played for Georgetown for 5 years. Mm-hmm. So their sons continued the legacy too, not quite the players that their dads were, but Ryan Mutombo, is another, he's a very he's a lot like his father in terms of, the off the court stuff, and he's not going to be an NBA player or anything like that, but cut from the same cloth as his dad, who again is one of the great humanitarians of modern sports.
Right. And one thing that's interesting to know about Mutombo too is he goes to Georgetown University. not to play basketball. He played basketball in Africa, but he basically went to Georgetown with the idea of becoming a doctor. And John Thompson, the famous Georgetown Hoyas basketball coach, said, why don't you try? Let me try. Let me see if I can get you to become an NBA player.
Give this a shot.
Yeah, let's. You're pretty tall and you're pretty good. I think we can make this happen. And obviously it very much happened for him, because he plays in the NBA from 1991 to 2009, 8-time All-Star, 4-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year, very well known for his defense and very well known for the iconic block a shot and then wag your finger. You've probably seen it 1,000 times. If you're any sort of sports fan whatsoever, you've probably seen a clip of Mutombo blocking a shot and waving his finger. And the great story about this, and I just learned about this week, is that Mutombo basically said, yeah, I did that because I wanted people to pay attention to me. And people don't pay attention when you block a shot normally. It's like, you block a shot, cool. He said, I wanted people to know, hey, I want some people to say that's Dikembe Mutombo blocking someone's shot there. So he decided, I'm going to block a guy's shot and I'm going to wag my finger at him and make that my signature. So people are going to pay attention to me. And goddamn, if it didn't work, that guy blocked a ton of shots, wagged his finger at everybody, and it worked. And it became an iconic symbol of Dikembe Mutombo's career. But yeah, that's, I was reading an article and, it was a newspaper article at the time, and they were talking about how there's guys block shots all the time, but nobody cares. Nobody cares if Mark Eaton blocks someone's shot or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, great, thanks, Mark Eaton. But Dikembe blocked a shot, and it was the biggest thing in the world. The crowd went nuts. Everybody went nuts because then they knew they were going to get the finger wag. So just an incredible,
it was smart self promotion.
Yeah, way ahead of his time too, because that's something that like you could understand today. A player today saying, "Oh, this is my signature dance. This is my signature thing I do," or whatever. Dikembe was doing this in 1991, saying, "You know what? I'm going to wag my finger after I block a shot because then I'm going to make more money." And he did. He made a lot more money throughout his career because of it. But
till he died. I mean, he was in all those Geico commercials. No.
Yeah, with his great voice, with his all-time great voice too. Yeah, if you ever heard the guy talk,
like a movie. He sounded like a movie monster. He said, he had that great like voice that just fit the gimmick. And when he was on that Nuggets team, that was the first 8 seed to win a first round playoff series, and laying on his back, holding up that basketball at the end of that game is an iconic moment in NBA history. Dikembe Mutombo holding up that basketball on that Nuggets team with, I guess, Robert Pack and
Muhammad Abdul-Rauf was on that team too. Robert Pack.
Was LaFonso Ellis there yet?
I don't know was LaFonso Ellis there yet? This is something I should know off the top of my head, but I don't, which sucks. I think he was. I'm going to say he was, but I'll look it up in a second. He was. LaFonso Ellis was there. Yeah. Bryant Stith. That's a classic 1990s basketball player. Bryant Stith.
Brian Stith from Virginia. I know more about that. I can name one Nugget now, the European.
Right. Nikola Jokic. You don't even know his name. You know him as the European, but
and Murray's there. Right?
Yeah, Jamal Murray. But you can give me Robert Pack, Muhammad Abdul-Rauf, LaFonso Ellis,
in the rotation
Brian
with the 91 Nuggets here.
Rodney Rogers, Bison Dele, the still missing, I believe, Bison Dele. I don't know if he's been officially declared dead yet, but still.
We're going 9 deep on the rotation. I could name 2 from the team that won the finals a few years ago.
What's an awesome thing about that Nuggets team that a lot of people don't remember, and this is very over and back, the NBA history podcast I used to do, is that in the first round, they beat the Sonics. They're 8 seed that beats the number 1 seed. A lot of people forget, though, that next round, they went to 7 games with the Utah Jazz. They very nearly made it to the conference finals as an 8 seed that year, and they were not that good of a team. Yeah, that's Malone Stockton.
That's Malone Stockton, probably Jeff Malone, Mark Eaton.
Yeah, and that's that Sonics team that they beat. Everybody thought that was the team that was going to win the title that year, and it was like, okay, finally Jordan's gone, so you get a little bit of the, there's a lot less pressure. Once you get to the finals, it's like, oh man, if we just get to the finals, who knows what's going to happen once we get there. There was a while there where you got to the finals and you're like, fuck, we're not going to win this. Michael Jordan's going to beat us pretty good. That was a year where you're like, oh shit, all right, we can make it. And the Sonics were the best team in the league, and everybody thought the Sonics were going to make it to the NBA Finals, and Gary Payton and Sean Kemp and that whole team was going to finally win a title, and that didn't happen for them. And very nearly they upset the Jazz as well. And the Jazz were also thought to possibly be in contention to go to the NBA Finals that year as well. But of course, they lost to the Houston Rockets, and the Rockets would go on to beat the Knicks that year to win the NBA title. But no, Dikembe is just an incredible, all-time, 2-time rebounding leader as well. Blocks, led the league in blocks from 94 to 96. It wasn't necessarily about the volume of blocks. It was just about what they meant. it was something different when Mutombo blocked you because of that finger wag, because of what it all meant, and it's just like he had an aura about him that and you know, like I said, he was a better human than a baseball player, but that's not taking anything away from him as a basketball player.
He's a legitimate Hall of Fame basketball player.
Right. But just I really want to stress just what an incredible human being he was, and you should look. I mean,
well, he's one of the great humanitarians of modern sport. There was a great tweet with a picture of Mutombo from the Geico commercial doing the no.
Yeah, no.
and the caption on the tweet, because he died the same day as Pete Rose, which is crazy. Okay, the caption on the tweet was Dikembe Mutombo at the pearly gates to Pete Rose. No. Right. Incredible tweet.
It's so good. Yeah.
So perfect in every way. You know, it's just so funny.
But, but no, great player. Played for the Nuggets, the Hawks. Let me see if I can do this off the top of my head. I believe I can do this. Nuggets, Hawks, Sixers, Nets. Got traded to the Chicago Bulls, but never did actually play for the Chicago Bulls. Then the Knicks, and I believe the Rockets was his final stop. And probably most known for his Nuggets run, but probably known as pretty much if you played for your team at any point, you know him. You know what I mean? He was that kind of guy. But yeah, great basketball player. And yeah, all you need to know is if you go to his Wikipedia, the humanitarian section is longer than his NBA playing career section, and that's pretty remarkable. It's, you know, hospitals and houses and basketball facilities and spreading basketball to Africa, a big part of the Basketball Without Borders program, which is helping basically grow the game in Africa. And we're seeing that pay off in huge numbers right now. I mean, some of the top stars in the NBA right now are you know, of either directly from Africa or have parents that are directly of African descent or whatever. So it's been hugely successful. And he big time in starting they have an Africa League as well, the BAL, the Basketball Africa League, and he was a big part of that. Too, building, you know, arenas, building stadiums, building all that sort of stuff. I mean, just an incredible, just an incredible guy for everything that he did. But a very, very fun basketball player
58 years old, and I think it caught a lot of people off guard, but because he kept it very private.
He did, yeah.
But as a Georgetown fan, you know, the wrestling has the internet wrestling community, the internet Hoya community. It was an open secret that he was not long for the world, so it didn't really. But I'm sure it caught a lot of people as a big shock. You know, it was a guy not even 60 years old and not that long ago was sitting courtside watching his son playing at Georgetown, you know, but then he disappeared from the games, and then the whisper started, and people, you know, and I think Pat Ewing may have made a couple public comments about his health terrible story there with Mutombo. You know, Pete Rose lived a full life. He was 83 years old. You know, it's always sad to some degree when anyone dies, but Dikembe Mutombo, with everything he still had to offer the world and being 58 years old and dying of brain cancer, I mean, that's bullshit. Yeah, that's the rough part of life. That's the rough part of life when something like that happens.
Yeah, you get so many people that it's like, man, you know, just living life and, you know, for lack of a better term, you know, wasting, years and years of their life and, you know, contributing nothing to the world. And then you have Dikembe Mutombo, who's just contributing so much time, energy, money, anything you could possibly do to the world. And yeah, he gets taken away at age 58, which is just, and that's a lot younger than I thought he would have been. You know, I think it's one of those things where, because now I'm getting older, it's like, oh, I watched this guy as a kid and I don't, it doesn't click with me that, like, oh my God, he's only 58 years old. Like, he's not that old. That's not that old, you know? It just, yeah, sucks. But, no, he's an incredible human being. So there's Dikembe Mutombo and Pete Rose. So, hopefully, we lived up to everybody's, what they wanted out of those sports obituaries. But those are two all-timers. We did it for Bill Russell. We did it for Bill Walton. We got to do it for Pete Rose and Dikembe Mutombo.
Willie Mays.
So Willie Mays, yeah, we got to do it for John Madden, yeah.
Demand it, you know, you can't ignore some of these, you know, and unfortunately we're running out, you know, but I guess the world keeps churning out new ones, right? So
yeah,
but you know, a lot of the legendary, we talked about it with Willie Mays, there's a lot of the legendary baseball stars. There really aren't many from that golden era of the game. You know, Pete Rose's career started in '63. There's really not that many guys left who were big stars in the '50s. You know, which was the big. Mays was the last one. I mean, and he was 90, whatever he was, 97 years old or whatever it was. So, running out of them. But you know, each generation creates new ones, I guess, and eventually we'll be the old guys, and like you're saying, the guys we watched growing up become those legendary figures that the next generations never saw play. Right?
Yeah.
We're probably talking to a bunch of people that never saw Dikembe Mutombo play.
No, I know. It's horrifying. It's horrifying to think of, but yeah, for sure.
And we're 100% talking to people who never saw Pete Rose play. You never saw Pete Rose play, so.
No. Yeah. Right. Never did.
And I barely remember Pete Rose. I remember the night he broke the hit record against Eric Schau of the San Diego Padres and how they broke into all the games that night to show it and everything. And, but I probably never saw Pete Rose. I probably never saw him take more than 10 at-bats in a live game, when they were playing the Mets or something on local TV. So, the world keeps turning, I guess.
If you are listening live right now, NBA TV is showing that game that we were talking about, the Denver Nuggets Seattle Supersonics game right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's in the fourth quarter, so jump over there. It's got 2 minutes left to go. So
and see that iconic scene of him holding up the ball at the end.
You got time. So if you got cable, you got NBA TV, get on there. Dikembe he just missed a shot. He wasn't a great offensive player. Very good defensive player.
Not a great offensive player.
Not a great offensive player. That's all right.
All-time defensive player.
Yeah. Right. Well known for his defense.
And listen, not revisionist history and a gimmick either. He was a great defensive player. He was, especially in that era of the game. Okay, that he was a force.
Oh, he would have worked now too because he was slender. He wasn't like, and that's what's kind of interesting about him is in that day you had your Shaquille O'Neals and you mentioned Othello Harrington, a guy that was just as big as a fucking house, man. That guy was just massive, just a big Patrick Ewing, another guy that was just fucking wide and big. Alonzo Mourning, big, wide, strong. And then Dikembe Mutombo was very slender. I mean, he was strong, but he was very slender, but his wingspan was incredible and he was fast. So he's a guy that if you plopped him into today's NBA, I think he'd be just as powerful of a defender as all those other guys. And like now you bring Shaq into today's NBA, he's going to have to change his body a lot because there's no way that but Dikembe Mutombo, it's like, yeah, you could go.
The centers are back. The centers are back. They're you convinced me that the center, and when I started paying more attention, the centers were gone for a long time, but the centers are back.
They're back. They got to do a lot though. They got to move around a little bit, but Victor and the other guys are bringing the centers back. But you got to be able to move a little. Got to be able to move a little bit. But
a little more athletic than Mark Eaton.
Right? Yeah. Mark Eaton's a great example of that guy is done. That he was perfect for the era he was in, and Mark Eaton cannot be transported to today's era. It would not work on any level whatsoever because that man was stone-footed, but man, he could block a shot. He could block a shot. Yeah.
Joe Klein. I don't know about Joe Klein.
I don't think Joe Klein's getting that big contract. I don't think Joe Klein's getting a big contract in today's NBA. But all right, let's get to this professional wrestling. Somebody that did get a big contract. AEW. So we talked about this last night on the Instant Reaction Live for AEW Dynamite's 5-year anniversary that AEW has secured a new rights deal with Warner Brothers Discovery. It looks like the 185 seems to be the number that a lot of people are now going with. When we were doing the show last night, there was still the 150 that was out there. There was the 170, and now it looks like the 180 is pretty much agreed upon by most people I've seen that the deal is for 3 years guaranteed. With a fourth option year. Now, the option year would come at a substantial increase as well if they were to pick that option, WBD, if they were to pick up that option. But 185 seems to be the yearly number that we're hearing. We talked about this last week as well, that Dynamite and Collision will remain on the networks that they are. TBS and TNT will remain on the same days. Rampage appears to be going the way of the dodo, so Rampage will be gone. And those shows will stream on Max as well. So if you don't have cable, you just have to be a Max subscriber in the US, and you'll be able to get Dynamite and Collision streaming on Max. And the pay-per-views will eventually at some point next year be available on Max as well at a discount, but you can still order them on traditional pay-per-view, Triller and pay-per-view.com and YouTube TV or wherever you want to get the pay-per-views from. You can still do that. Other stuff that I guess we should note, maybe updated from last night, the Shockwave thing is still currently up in the air. Now, there's been reports that they are looking to still shop that last deal out to other networks. You and I theorized that very likely the reason for getting rid of Rampage is that Dynamite or AEW is more than willing to tell WBD that we don't really need to fight over Rampage because we're probably going to get another deal elsewhere. So that looks to be the case there. We'll go back to that in a minute. I do want to talk a little bit more about that. But something that we did not mention last night that I think is relevant, and we did mention this a couple weeks ago when we were talking about AEW's financials, is international deals as well. The money that they're making, this 185 or whatever per year from WBD is not the only income that AEW has. I think a lot of people continue to like look at it as like, oh, they have the opportunity to still secure international deals all over the place. And we talked about how WWE has let go of all those international deals. WWE has said we are going to let Netflix handle all of our distribution internationally. And once all of our US deals are done, Netflix is going to handle everything from there as well. But internationally, Netflix is it. That is the only way that you can watch WWE beginning next year is on Netflix. All those international deals, every network that carried wrestling before is no longer carrying wrestling right now, or not carrying WWE wrestling. And AEW has an opportunity to move into a lot of those markets as well. Now, that's not big money. We're not talking about, hundreds and millions of, hundreds of thousands of millions. We're not talking big money, but a little bit of money here and there. It's a nice chunk of change that can still be added to that overall pot when we have these discussions about AEW and the money that they're bringing in and the profitability and all that sort of stuff. That should be noted too. The international deals still out there and still, very, very able to be negotiated. And I think that's just about it. I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to clarify that we did not talk about yesterday.
AEW is negotiating with network television. Their negotiations, I have very good reason to believe, trying to phrase this properly. I have very good reason to believe that their negotiations are in fact for Big Fox and not FS1. They are not shopping that secondary media rights package around to cable entities.
Okay.
How's that?
There you go. That works.
It's Big Fox.
It's network.
And
network TV Fox.
I'll go one step further. I'll do this. I shouldn't, but I'll go one step further.
Fuck it. Do it.
From what I am told, from the way I am understanding what I am told, let me put it to you this way. Somebody told me to prepare my victory lap. How about that? How's that?
That's pretty good.
I was told that I could safely prepare my... Let me give you the exact wording. Yeah, I can. I was told I could safely begin preparing my victory.
Okay, so maybe do some stretches, get ready.
Yeah, pull up,
get hydrated, and get hydrated a little bit. Just in case.
Water system. Now look, let me also add. I know nothing. It's not my sourcing, okay? But someone who does have excellent sourcing and would know and would potentially report something like this, Joe, you can safely start preparing your victory lap. So the bottom line is this secondary media rights package, they are absolutely shopping this thing to networks. Now, Fox appears to be the front runner and Fox appears to be realistic. But, and Thurston wrote this today. You can't write off CBS. You can't write off Ion. Don't forget Ion. Now, that'll be kind of a wet fart if they end up on Ion to a lot of people, I think. But you could forget NBC. All right? They already do business with WWE. You can probably forget ABC with their connections with TKO. Okay? But Fox is absolutely in play, and it is Big Fox. I'll also say this. If you notice, since the Variety story came out, the wrestling reporters, the real ones, Meltzer, Sapp, okay? The wrestling reporters all of a sudden are very well informed. AEW has been they've been chatty for the first time in a long time. And
loose lips. Those lips have been loose.
Because all the news is good, Rich.
Yes. A little puffy chested.
That's not a shot at Dave or Sean, obviously. But they're getting information that they're asking for all of a sudden on this when it was absolutely, when stuff was totally locked down. But once the mainstream media broke it, this is the time. I'll phrase it to you this way. You want to try to get something out of AEW, this is the time to do it concerning this topic. Because they're more than willing to chat about this stuff right now. Okay, so you're not going to get them on record. How many on record quotes have you seen, Rich Craig?
Very few.
How many?
Very few, as in zero.
How many, according to an AEW source?
Sources tell us. Yeah.
According to Tony Khan, according to whoever the fuck. You're not getting a lot of that. Okay? But, connect dots here. All right? So, again, not my sourcing. I personally know nothing. I haven't asked anybody in an official, but I am told reliably these talks are with network TV and Big Fox. Okay? Now, does that mean a deal is done or anything? No, because if a deal was done, we'd know about it. There's nothing done yet, but this is realistic for them. This is more than realistic at this point. So, so just keep an eye on that situation. Who knows? By the time a lot of people listen to this, we might have something. We might not. We kind of talked about it last night, though. It'd have to be Tuesday or Thursday. We broke all that down last night. I think Thursday makes the most sense.
Thursday makes the most sense for travel purposes as well, depending on taping schedules and all that sort of stuff. I guess Tuesday would work too because it'd be the day before Dynamite, but it does kind of work. It seems like Thursday just fits a little bit better. And then there's truly no wrestling competition on that day. There's no, it'd be for discourse purposes, I hope it's on Thursday, because if it's on Tuesday, we start doing the fucking NXT versus AEW thing again. We start doing the Tuesday Night Wars. I just want to avoid all that stuff. And now they should not do that. If Fox is going to say, hey, we're going to pay you X amount of money to put the show on Tuesday, you fucking put the show on Tuesday and you don't worry about the damn discourse. But for my purposes and your purposes and all of our purposes, it would be so much cleaner if it was on Thursday, because I'm sorry, no one's going to do, TNA versus AEW content. But actually, no, I just thought about it. We do the flagship on Thursday. Fuck that. Go to Tuesday. Don't run up against us. Fuck you, Fox. Put that shit on Tuesday. Tuesday Night Wars. Tuesday Night Wars. We'll beat them again. Tuesday Night Wars. That's what I want, Joe. I want the Tuesday Night Wars. I want Thursday.
Tony.
Just us and TNA.
Tony don't want no piece of us. Tony don't want no piece of us.
No.
He knows. He's pushing for Tuesdays. He'd rather compete with NXT.
Yeah, he beat him once before. He could beat him again,
I guess the only other major change from the conversation we had last night would be that most reporters are now agreeing on the 185 figure.
I said that at the beginning. Yeah, I said that at the top. That I think we can pretty much lock that in as the number for sure. But I think
on an average, because these have escalators and
sure,
and all those sorts of things. And Meltzer noted that if they do trigger the fourth year option, it would be significantly higher than the 185.
Correct.
Which that's how these things work, though.
We did this a little bit yesterday, but I do want to do it again today and just, kind of remind people big picture wise about this AEW TV deal that, a mini victory lap here. You'll do the most annoying victory lap of all time if that Fox thing comes true. So just strap in for that. So I think for this, we'll go a little bit easy on it. But I mentioned this last night. And I mentioned today on the Flagship to all of our, the free listeners that will listen in on their podcast feeds is there was a podcast that always told you that they were going to sign a new TV deal. There was a podcast that follows sports business and follows the TV business. And at no point ever in the last 2, 3, 4 years has said that AEW was not going to get renewed or was going to get kicked off of TV or that WBD was going to throw their hands of it and that they weren't going to be able to get. We always said that something was going to happen, probably with WBD, but that this company was going to get another TV deal. We never wavered on that. Because we understand what this business is. We understand what the TV business is, what the sports business is, all that sort of stuff. And you have to know all that sort of stuff to talk in this space. You have to know that shit. There's a lot of people that their purview of the world is either simply pro wrestling or it's simply a certain era of pro wrestling. It's the Monday Night Wars, the Attitude Era. That's all they know. Their intelligence and their knowledge of wrestling is rooted in like a 10-year period of wrestling history, and they don't know anything else about anything. And those people all look like absolute buffoons today and should be laughed at and should be mocked. And
Sorry. My phone started going off.
You're good. You got Terry Francona. I get it. You're fine. You're good.
Somebody sent me a link. Not somebody. Somebody sent me a link, and when I clicked it, it was a YouTube video, and it just started playing. It was like, hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and I'm like,
I was wondering. That sounded like Conrad a little bit, but well, hey. You know what? That kind of fits with what I was talking about there. There are people.
It's the Eric Bischoff Mea Culpa video, so I have to watch that.
Oh, God, I got to watch that later, too, for sure. I cannot wait. Well, that's great. That actually does work perfectly with what I'm talking about at the moment, where a lot of people showed a lot of ass today.
Rich in the middle of a sentence. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson.
Got some PTSD.
I'm like, oh, shit. I didn't know my phone. I thought the volume was on.
Anyway, but it works. You know what? It worked. No, hey. You don't have to apologize because it actually works with the segment. A lot of people are showing ass today. And it's important that I know that most of the people listening to this are not listening to a lot of those people that I'm talking about, and these people that don't know anything about the sports business and don't know anything about the TV business and very clearly don't know anything about the wrestling business as well. But if you are still one of those people, this might be a good time to wake up and realize who you're listening to. You know what I mean? Like, and realize that the people you're listening to don't know anything. Now, if you're entertained by them, that's fine. You can go and continue to be entertained by them, but understand that they are not knowledgeable about what is going on in the current wrestling business, because there are a lot of people that were very confident that what happened yesterday with AEW was not going to happen, was impossible, couldn't happen, wouldn't happen, all that sort of stuff. And they look like absolute buffoons today. And they look like clowns and they look like idiots. And that's because they don't understand sports business, they don't understand the TV business, and they don't understand the wrestling business. So I just kind of I don't know if we want to call it a victory lap or what should be a wake-up call for a lot of people. And again, there's probably a very select amount of people that I'm still talking to that still consume a lot of those people's media. But understand that you are listening to people that are either doing a bit, are straight up trolling, or they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. It's one of those three, and you have to decide if you still want to listen to those people and consume their content. I think I'm good.
Rich Craich, everybody.
I think I'm good. Yeah.
Listen. Yeah, I mean, we never wavered. It seemed obvious I never pressed the panic button. A lot of people did at various points. And I said, however long ago I said it, and I can't find it. I'm trying to find it. I said, however long ago, I thought it'd be, Fox wanted to stay in the wrestling business. AEW made more sense. They could get an easier return on their investment with a less expensive deal with AEW. And here we are, and we're that may be happening very soon. And people probably thought I was crazy when I said that Fox should give WWE the boots and do business with AEW because it's more advantageous for them. If you can get it at a 40% discount and do 70% of the rating, right? With a better educated and higher income viewership, that's going to bring you slightly higher ad rates on paper, in theory. It just made a lot of sense. So maybe we'll end up being right about that one too. But you're right. Again, that takes having some understanding of things outside of this particular bubble, I guess.
It does, yeah, and I think that's a big issue. And one of the things that helped Tony Khan when he decided to start this company is that he understood things outside of this wrestling bubble. And I know it's really hard for people in this wrestling bubble to understand that people can be smart and come from outside of it and enter it. And that's a big reason why Tony Khan gets all the criticisms that he does, is because he's not one of them. You know what I mean? He came, quote unquote, from the outside, and now he's on the inside. And no, you can't do that. That's not how things are done. You didn't come up the way that we all came up. Well, yeah, he did. You know what I mean? Too bad. He's here. And the reason that he started AEW was because he saw what happened yesterday as a possibility. He looked at the landscape. I always talk about this. AEW, and I talked about it in the Change the World series that I'm doing right now on flagshippatreon.com, talking about, the early AEW pay-per-views. AEW being created was a Goldilocks situation. Everything had to be just right. You know what I mean? You had to have Tony Khan, you had to have a billionaire that loved wrestling and was strong-willed. And you have that in Tony Khan. You had to have a sports media landscape that was going to pay for professional wrestling / live sports. And he has that. He has it even more than he had it when he began. I don't think he could have foreseen that cable would take an absolute dive that it has, and it has made sports more valuable. He has made wrestling more valuable because of that. So you needed that. You needed a strong-willed billionaire that loves professional wrestling. You needed a sports media landscape that would lead to professional wrestling being a valuable commodity. You had that. You needed to have free agents that were available to sign that had drawing power and drawing ability, and you had that in Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and Cody, and at that time CM Punk still, who was a free agent and Tony obviously wanted to have from day one and couldn't, but eventually did get. But those guys were all paramount. You needed those guys too. And none of this could happen without all those things. You could have a strong-willed billionaire who loves professional wrestling and all those free agents, but a sports media landscape that doesn't value wrestling, and it's not worth anything. You know what I mean? It's not. This isn't happening. You can have the strong-willed billionaire who loves wrestling and a great sports media landscape, but then Joey Janela is the top star in the company. You know what I mean? Like there's only so much you can do. I'm not picking on Joey Janela. I'm just pointing out a guy that was a free agent at that time that you could have picked up if there weren't those top tier guys. A day one guy that you could have brought in, a Darby Allin or Joey Janela. The company could have been built around those guys. It wouldn't have been the same. You needed Jericho and Omega and the Bucks and Cody. You need those guys. You needed CM Punk at some point. You needed those guys. John Moxley, becoming free as well. You needed all those guys. So it was the right place, right time. And I think he surrounded himself at the time with a lot of right people as well. They were new people. There's somebody that we know, Chris Harrington, got a job, one of the first people that Tony Khan hired. A guy who was doing a podcast on this very podcast network, WrestleNomics, and had been doing pro wrestling research behind the shadows for a lot of years, and then slowly kind of emerged from those shadows. Coming out, everybody knew him as Mookie Ghana for a very long time because he was just a guy that would post on the Observer board as Mookie Ghana, and he had all these incredible stats and incredible history and just understood the wrestling business in a way that a lot of other people didn't. And then he sort of emerged from the shadows as Chris Harrington, who would host the WrestleNomics podcast or whatever, and Tony hired him. He didn't hire, whoever was the top business guy in WWE. He went with Chris Harrington, a guy who was not employed by any wrestling company at that time. Wasn't a guy that probably...
Here's a little peek behind the curtain, an untold little nugget. Rich, you may or may not even remember this, but when Chris got approached and then hired by Tony Khan, and he may have been Tony's first hire.
I think he was.
He wasn't his first. He was one of the first, but just about a couple of weeks, like maybe just a few weeks before that, WrestleNomics, which was Chris and Brandon at the time, and us, Chris had pitched us.
I told the story.
I
told the story on the Patreon.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
but
go ahead. For the live listeners, go for it. Yeah.
For the free audience.
Yeah.
Chris had pitched us combining our Patreons at that time, as both of us were trying to find our footing and find a paying audience and all of those things. And laid out, the numbers and projections and all of these things. And it's just something that never even got to the point of negotiating or seriously talking about, because then Chris got hired by Tony Khan.
Yeah. Well, I told the story on Change the World, the first episode, flagshippatreon.com, by the way, exactly that. Like you said, that he pitched us on it. So then Chris and I met in person before All In. Hoffman Estates. I went to some I forget what hotel it was, and Chris was there, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to talk about the the WrestleNomics flagship thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, sounds great." So we met, we talked, we had a good little conversation. He was like, "Yeah, I really think we should do this. Like, I think it'd be a good idea." And I said, "Yeah, you know what? Send me your last pitch, and I'll send it to Joe. Like, I think it'd be a good idea." And in hindsight, I'm glad that we are separate entities. I think it's probably better off for both people that we're separate entities, but at that time, and we didn't know what the hell was going on. We were all trying to go for an audience. We were still trying to kind of navigate this Patreon world. So I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it sounds great. We're all buddies, so that sounds good to me." And so I'm talking, and then Chris looks at his phone and goes, "Oh shit, I gotta go. I have a meeting with somebody else." I went, "Oh, okay, no problem." Now I don't know, and he never told me.
Yeah.
But then the next day when I was like, "Hey, Chris, you want to send me that info?" And he goes, "Something came up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it." And I was like, "Okay, all right." Or he kind of said like, "Hey, I'll get that to you eventually, but I'm working on something else right now. So give me a minute. Give me a minute. And then he, emails me and says, "Actually, I'm going to help this guy start a wrestling company." I was like, "What?" I was like, and so I don't know. Yeah. I don't know for sure. But I would say I left that conversation before Chris had to go out to a meeting with somebody else. I left that conversation with the idea that, hey, we're going to do this thing. And afterwards I was told, no, and you know what? He's way better off doing that. Let me tell you, way better off helping, Tony Khan run a wrestling company. But that sort of foresight, again, to hire somebody like that, like to hire Mookie Ghana / Chris Harrington, a guy that no other wrestling company on earth would have the foresight and the smarts to hire that guy. And he's still there. He's still there.
Yeah.
He's a day oneer and still.
Well, we turned him down. Take that, Harrington.
We told Mookie Ghana to hit the fucking bricks.
We told Harrington to hit the bricks. No, but it never even came to that because he got hired. I mean, we never even. I still have the proposal in my Google Docs somewhere, but I mean, it never even came to that, And then Brandon took it over solo and just obviously has done a tremendous job. I mean, that's. I think what Brandon does is some of the most important work in wrestling media. And, there's no doubt about that. And I'm proud that it started here, first with Mookie. And, you really want to do the lore with that. You can go all the way back to before Mookie, before we took on WrestleNomics. Mookie was doing Indeed Wrestling. And in the earliest days, in the earliest incarnation of what would become WrestleNomics, while Brandon Thurston was still,
taking
wrestling
bumps,
the Blade, was wrestling the Blade up in Buffalo.
Right.
And Puff, Brandon was doing Indeed Wrestling with somebody using a what do you call it? A pseudonym? What's a fake name? What do you call that word? A stage name? What's the fancy word for it? Pseudonym? Is it a pseudonym?
Pseudonym. And, a working name. Let's go with that.
A working name, and that co-host was Brody Lee. So that was the because he was a wrestler already at that point.
Right. What was his? Do you remember what it was? It was something funny. It was like Harlan or it was some generic ass.
I can't remember. It was they both had silly names and it was but then that podcast eventually evolved into what became WrestleNomics. Right. We took on WrestleNomics, and then he took on Brandon, and then he took the job, and then Brandon took over the WrestleNomics brand. And, and away we go. And then Brandon, of course, has been doing that for a number of years now and is doing a great job of it. So that's the WrestleNomics Chris Harrington lore. But I think that to wrap this up and we'll move on, there's a lot of people who do antiquated analysis, and you look no further than Eric Bischoff, who just doesn't have any understanding of modern television, and he puts himself over as an expert on television because he had a bunch of failed shows with Jason Hervey 10-15 years ago, and because he ran a wrestling company that was successful for about a year and a half 25 years ago, longer than that now, and really just has a series of failures in pro wrestling since then. But he's enough of a charismatic personality and talker to convince a very wide audience that he's an expert on these matters. And the fact of the matter is Eric Bischoff does not have his finger on the pulse of anything. And, is using old Monday Night War logic and trying to apply it 25, 26, 27 years later where it does not apply. Trying to apply old Monday Night War standards of unless you're beating WWE, you're failing, and unless you're growing, you're dying, while having no understanding. It was just 2 weeks ago that Eric Bischoff said on his show that that there's no way Fox is going to do business with AEW. He just said it, Rich. And I don't know if that deal is going to be finalized or not, but it's very real. It's a very realistic possibility. And not just to no pun intended, strictly pick on Eric Bischoff, but there's a lot of Eric Bischoffs out there doing antiquated analysis that doesn't apply to 2024 sports.
Right. It's not just him. There's several other people out there.
He's the most high profile one, and he's the one with the largest reach. And the thing is, and people will take his takes and then it becomes the pulse and it becomes the widest accepted analysis of what's happening, and these people have no idea that they're listening to someone who just has no clue. Just has no clue. And it's not just him. There's many others. And Dave Meltzer was far less measured than we were on his audio in addressing all of these people. And, some of them are doing gimmicks. There's no doubt about it. But some of them legitimately just don't have any fucking idea what they're talking about. And, we all know they're going to move the goalpost. We all know they're going to move on to some other to find another way because there is an audience. There is a large audience of people who hate that AEW exists, and they need that comfort listen of this thing is failing. There's a lot of, I know it's hard to but there's a lot of people who feel that way. They hate that it exists. They hate the people who are involved in it. They hate Kenny Omega and the Bucks and Tony Khan, and there is a large and vast audience of people and wrestling fans and lapsed fans and current fans who it's a comfort listen for them to hear people to hear how AEW is failing and not working and fucking up and isn't going to exist and is one step from doom. And as long as those people exist, there's going to be personalities who feed that market. It's not going away. I know, Rich, I know you want it to go away, and I know you want people to ignore it. You know, and so do I, but you're pissing up a rope, man. It's you know, unfortunately, Bischoff is the most prominent pundit in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. He just is. He just is. And he's done a great job cultivating an audience and convincing people that that a certain segment of people that he's the most knowledgeable and he's become the most prominent pundit.
Yeah, he's taking that crown from Cornette because Cornette got too like radical about a lot of his stuff. So I think a lot of people hand waved, whereas Bischoff is a little bit better at being measured in his takes.
You know what? People aren't going to like what I'm about to say, but Cornette isn't quite militant enough for a lot of these people, because if you really listen to Cornette's audio, while he still does the gimmick, okay, he's not. It's hard for me to articulate. I think Bischoff plays to the audience I was just talking about more than Cornette does, like in an intentional way. Bischoff deliberately plays to that audience and targets them. Mm-hmm. You know, and more so than
his great
Cornette.
video that he had like 3 weeks ago. There's no fucking deal, and it's, you know, Tony screaming and Eric, you know, in his thumbnail face, like all disappointed. It's like, my God, what is this?
It's a cottage industry that's making him money. That's what it is. You know, that's exactly what it is. And his takes are the most prominent ones, and they extend beyond people who even listen to him, because then people parrot it. People parrot his takes, and it becomes his takes become the discourse. People see his takes in their YouTube algorithms. Even if they don't listen to the video, Rich, they see the headline. They see what it says in the thumbnail. Every shitty wrestling site aggregates everything he says.
Yep.
So people see the headlines
and don't fight back on what, that's one of the big issues that I have with aggregation is Eric Bischoff : AEW has no fucking TV deal or whatever is posted without any sort of, you know, analyzing or fact checking or anything like that. It's just like somebody that was once in wrestling said something, so that's the headline. And that's bullshit. That's not the way that news should be disseminated. Is just because somebody says something, that's not the headline. And just because you put someone's name and then you put a colon and then you put some fucking dumb quote behind it, that's not how news is supposed to be done. And you click those posts and it's not like people are saying, oh yeah, Eric said this, but obviously, you know, we know that some sort of it's never. It's just Eric Bischoff in his 83 Weeks podcast said and that's it. And that's the post. That's the entire content of the post, and that gets shared and retweeted and talked about and becomes a talking point. And that's bullshit. And these aggregators, it's partially their fault too. You know, Attitude Era.
It's not partial. It's very much their fault.
Yeah. But Attitude Era wrestler : some fucking dumb quote. Stop with that. That's not fucking news. That's not news. That's not worthy of being posted.
Nobody's aggregating us. Nobody's aggregating WrestleNomics. Nobody's aggregating Dave Meltzer unless it's something that they can use in a disingenuous way.
Right, but fucking Rikishi. Oh, Rikishi says something. Man, I got to make sure.
Did you see the writing that Dave Meltzer has done the last 2 days behind his paywall on this story?
He's been on. We always say when the time comes and there's a big time story, nobody delivers like Dave. Nobody delivers like Dave.
With the business stuff, the 2 stories he wrote yesterday behind his paywall, no one's aggregating that. So then they just aggregate the stuff that makes Dave look bad. And then people have this image of Dave that he's biased and all this other assorted nonsense, that he doesn't know what he's talking about, that he's just, you know, made a career of being a liar. because the aggregation game doesn't play well when he's just doing the best business analysis that there is. Right? So, the point is, people then take on the thought process and the talking points and the ideas of these, for lack of a better term, grifting cottage industry people who have made a living off of slagging off on AEW disingenuously or otherwise. People parrot that stuff and take on those thoughts, even if they never listen to a second of their audio. If you go talk to your normie wrestling fan friends, if you have friends who are wrestling fans that aren't deep in the weeds, that would never listen to a show like this, I guarantee you they're going to parrot back some of the stuff that some of these people say, because it then becomes the narrative without even ever having to listen to them. And I think what Rich said before is obviously true. We need to stop spotlight, but it's not us and the people who listen to us that are doing it. It's these shitty aggregators, and it's the YouTube algorithms. It can't be stopped. As long as there's a market for it, it's going to exist. So the goalposts will move. And you would think that this would shut everybody up, and it might for a while. But they'll find ways. Rich, they're going to find their angles. And the best we can hope for is enough people who are truly interested in understanding how this stuff works come around on it and say, you know what? All these guys were wrong.
Yeah, these guys look like idiots.
Find different people to listen to.
This guy that I trusted that he understands the business was fucking horribly wrong and completely missed the boat on this.
Doesn't understand anything, right? And you can win those people over if they care enough. You're never winning over the people who want that comfort listen, who want to hear that this company that they detest, that they wish didn't exist, is failing. And there's people who are always going to want to hear that. So as long as there's a market for it, unfortunately, there's going to be a space to specifically target that audience. And in some ways, I think Cornette inadvertently attracted that audience, because let's face it, he truly despises AEW. Does he turn it up to 11? Of course he does. He's Jim Cornette, and he understands how to work. Okay? But do I truly believe that he hates it and thinks it? Yes, of course. We all know what Jim Cornette thinks, values in his pro wrestling. So, anyway, I don't want to get too far off the beaten path with it. But, I guess we see where it all falls. But, man, if they get on Fox, can more crow possibly be eaten by people?
There's not enough crows. There's not enough crows to be eaten.
There's not enough crow, Rich. We're out of crow for these people to eat.
Oh, man. All right. Well, yeah, we'll see that as it goes on. But all right, let's get to some of the other topics we have here today. Let's start with the world of WWE. We have a big-time pay-per-view this weekend, Joe. WWE Bad Blood. It's not In Your House Bad Blood, and there's no extra D in bad. I don't know if you remember that in 1997. They had Taker and Shawn Michaels, and it was In Your House Bad Blood. I don't know why there's two Ds, but there was. But now there's only one D. Bad Blood. It is from Atlanta, Georgia. Current setup right now per WrestleTix, 14,257. Only 200 tickets available for purchase, so they're going to sell that thing out. It looks like, and I think that arena gets set up for around there as well, because sometimes obviously with WrestleTix you get the setup, and it's not setup isn't what the building actually is, but I think about 15,000 is about what used to be the Phillips Center. I don't know what the fuck, the State Farm Center. What the hell is this thing called these days? Let me find out what this arena in Atlanta is called. I'm gonna get an old man rant here, but it's like, no, it's not the Omni. It's on the site of the Omni, though. I believe it is on the site of the Omni.
Rich.
Yeah,
Omni in Atlanta, Georgia.
State Farm Arena. It is currently State Farm Arena. So there you go. But
Techwood Drive Studios.
It's not anywhere near Techwood. No, it is far from Techwood Drive. No, Center Stage.
It's not Peach Street.
It's not on Peach Street. No. It is on the site of the Omni, though. I believe you were closer when you said the Omni, but it is not. The Omni 5-match Paul Levesque pay-per-view special here. WWE Women's World Title, Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley. I cannot wait for the thrilling. what inning are we in with that feud? Because I'm ready to be done, but we're probably in inning 3 maybe. So I don't know where we're there.
Can we get to the 10th and put a runner on second already?
I agree. We need a ghost runner. We need a ghost runner in that feud for sure. Oh my god!
Hey, their audience eats it up.
They love it. Loves it. They love it. Yep. So, Nia Jax versus Bayley, WWE Women's Title match. Nia Jax versus Bayley. Yep. Finn Balor, what do you want us to say? Finn Balor versus Damian Priest. Also the same feud. So basically the Judgment Day versus what are they? The Bash Brothers. They're not the Bash Brothers. What are they called? The Terror Twins? Is it the Terror Twins? Ripley and Damian Priest. What's their thing called? It's the Terror Twins, I think. Let me find out what it is. I must find this out. Is it the Terror Twins? Someone in the chat room let us know, because I'm searching feverishly here to find out if it is the Terror Twins. The Terror Twins. It is the Terror Twins. Okay. There you go. So Finn Balor versus Damian Priest. And 2 matches we can't actually talk about that I do have a mild amount of interest in. CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre. Hell in a Cell. And Punk is talking a big game about this match. A big game about this match. And we'll see, man. We'll see.
According to the backup Hangman, this will be your opener on whatever day this is on.
Saturday.
I think that it's very clear that Punk has been disappointed in the matches in this feud. I know from, a lot of the WWE fans have enjoyed this feud, but I know that Punk hasn't, that this hasn't played out the way Punk has liked it to play out. He didn't like the bracelet stuff, but he had to put on to put on the smiling face and go with it. And they haven't had a great match in his eyes, I don't think.
I would agree with his eyes. I would agree with his eyes.
Yeah, I think this is the most disappointing feud of the year. I mean, from a hardcore wrestling fan standpoint, and not the statistically dumb and poor fan base standpoint, I just think that it's been the most disappointing feud of the year. Because I had high hopes for it, and the matches have not delivered. The bracelet shit was an embarrassment. And I think Punk probably sees this as a chance to just put all that behind and have a classic Hell in the Cell match and steal the show. Are they capable of doing that? I think so. Am I confident they can do that? I don't know. I mean, Punk can tear every muscle in his body within 6 minutes. It's Punk. It's Fragile Phil. So I don't know from that standpoint. I don't know if he's probably not going to be able to talk them into doing blood, but maybe he'll talk them into doing the blood. That'll help a lot, but it's modern WWE. I don't know if he'll win that fight. Drew is going to be Drew and do whatever, if he'll, it's not like he's going to get resistance from Drew, but Drew's just a company man that's going to do what he's told. And, we'll see. I mean, this really though, to our listeners, to people with the sensibilities of our listenership, this match has to deliver, or this is one of the most disappointing feuds in years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can't think of one more disappointing than this one. I really thought that this would be a feud that would sort of overcome the limitations that are naturally put on it with the global brand that it's taking place in, right?
Sure. This felt like a feud, and it felt like a series of matches that even us, who are just going to sleepwalk through a WWE preview, a WWE pay-per-view preview, are going to stop and say, okay, now it's Punk versus Drew McIntyre. This would be one that's universally like fans that adore WWE would like it, and then fans that are outside of that realm and maybe don't fully will have one eye on and go, oh man, I don't like a lot of the stuff that company does, but fuck, man, that was a good match. That was a hell of a match.
It hasn't been good shit.
And it hasn't been. No, and the feud was, and the problem was the shit talk between the two guys was, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And that's where I have my one question about this is, okay, I'm glad that Punk wants to go and have a great match at Hell in a Cell. But am I to believe that he didn't want to go and have a great match in the fucking bracelet match they had? Am I to believe that he didn't want to? Of course he wanted to have a great match. Did he not want to go out and have a great strap match with Drew McIntyre when they had their little dumb?
He pitched it. Of course he did.
Right, of course. And neither of those matches were great. And neither of those matches were good. So I'm glad that he wants to go out there and have a good Hell in a Cell match. That doesn't mean I believe it's going to be a good Hell in a Cell match, because the evidence has shown us time and time again, at least 2 times now, that that they don't, for whatever reason, whatever the limitations are put on in these matches, whether it's the physical limitations that both guys have, whether it's the political limitations, whether it's just that's not what the story is, and we want this to be the story, we want this to be I don't know what it is, but there's been a ceiling on every single one of these matches. So I'm glad that they are going into this match with the idea that they're going to have a really, really good match, but I'm not betting on that because so far they've had two, in my mind, stinkers. So we'll see if they can, defy that here with this Hell in a Cell. They should. Hell, they should have had a great strap match, and they didn't. They should have had a great singles match, and they didn't. They should have a fucking great Hell in a Cell match. There's nothing that should stop this match from being great.
Well, Levesque, it's up to Levesque.
Absolutely.
If Levesque says, let them do what they want to do, they're going to go out there and do what they want to do, and then they'll have the capacity to have a great match if Phil can keep his body together. But Levesque understands that this is, quote, a global brand, and there's a way that they do things, and they're going to satisfy their audience no matter what. They can build this around the bracelet again if they want, and their audience will eat it up. So from that standpoint, what's Levesque's motivation to allow these guys, other than keeping Punk happy, which I don't think that they care about enough. Do you think that they truly? I'm sure they love the quarter hours that he pops, and he popped another Mount Everest quarter hour this week.
Oh my God! Did you see that thing? Did you see that quarter hour? Holy shit!
He does it every time. I mean, the guy is undeniably a draw. And I'm sure that they love that he pops the big quarters and that he's CM Punk and that he sells 1 billion fucking t-shirts and all those things. But do you think they would truly give a shit if he pulled a Punk and walked out? They wouldn't miss a beat.
They wouldn't. They'd be fine.
It's. So
I think it's
I
good,
don't even
it's
know
good
that
to have them. And I think what's going on right now is I think WWE and specifically like your Paul Levesque and your Shawn Michaels and those sort of guys that run the show, it's good to have Punk because obviously if you can have him, you can have it. It's a dunk on AEW. He draws ratings. He sells T-shirts. He sells bracelets. He does all that sort of stuff. It's good to have him. But they also kind of like needling him, and I think they think it's funny that he's got to come here and eat shit, and they know that he can't do anything. They know that he's the bully that is going to get expelled if he throws a punch. So they know that, all right, we can test this guy a little bit. And I think they find it to be fun. Because that's always what this company, you don't have to, the apple doesn't fall that far from the tree. Trust me. Vince McMahon would love to needle his wrestlers, and I'm positive that Triple H finds a lot of glee in being the doofus son-in-law that now runs the show. And this guy, hat in hand, is showing up to say, this is my last chance. Please let me in the company so I can, have my last little bit of
and stick at the con.
Yeah, right. So you have to
set myself up for a 20-year post wrestling career running NXT. And
right. They know, and we know. Everybody knows this is his last chance. This is his last chance to be on his best behavior and have that quote unquote job for life if he's going to have that job for life. So they know they can needle him a little bit, and I think you're absolutely right that if one day Mount Brooks erupted and he just said, fuck all this shit, they would just go, all right, and move on, and they'd be perfectly fine without him. So it's a weird thing where they want him. Obviously, they want him employed, but if he quits, it's not that big of a deal. And they think it's kind of fun to kind of needle him, and they understand, this guy, he can't really punch back or do anything because this is his last chance in wrestling, what we have right now.
And they know he has to smile and fight over the bracelet. It's if he had his way, there's no way it would be built.
God, no. The bracelets, the friendship bracelets.
He couldn't cut enough promos trying to get away from it and then keep putting it back
every week. Every week he'd say it's not about the bracelet. Then next week he's like, give me that bracelet back. It's all about the bracelet. It was manic. That's what was manic for a while because you could tell, you could feel the push pull. You could feel the push pull coming from one guy trying to get away from the bracelet story, CM Punk, and then the company trying to continue to make it an integral part of the story.
Look. He's a con man and a worker. We all know that. He's playing to his current audience, just like he played to the AEW audience. I do think he was being a bit more genuine when he was playing to the AEW audience than he is now, but he understands, like Cody calling himself a sports entertainer now and calling it sports in the sports entertainment business, which he said 1,000 times in that McMahon doc, which it's like I'm sticking my finger down my throat. These guys, they're workers, and they know they have to play to that audience. And they know, Cody and Punk in a lot of ways are cut from the same cloth in that way. Punk knows. So he's on his best behavior and all of that, but Levesque understands too that he doesn't need to give Punk total freedom in order for Punk to get over. This Hell in a Cell will get over just fine if it's a PG, sponsor-friendly, global brand Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
So why allow them to do anything? There's no reason.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason other than to throw Punk a bone. Which, as we laid out, they may not even be interested in throwing him a bone.
I don't think they're interested in throwing him a bone. No.
So we'll see.
So that's going to open the show, apparently, and what's obviously going to main event, which no doubt in my mind that this is going to main event. I never in my wildest dreams thought the Hell in a Cell match was going to main event. Cody and Roman teaming up to face Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. Now, did you see the promo, the Cody Rhodes Roman Reigns football stadium promo that was all the rage a week or so ago?
Yeah, I did. What do you want me to say?
Not my thing.
It's not for us.
Not for us.
Not
for us. I will give it here. I will start out with the credit. I thought production wise, it was very well done. I thought in a vacuum, the idea of these two, Titanic stars meeting in the middle of this empty football arena and throwing jabs back at one another and talking to one another. That's kind of cool. You know what I mean? That's kind of cool. I get that. That's a pretty fun segment to have Cody and Roman get to this damn football stadium. They drive around the city and they get to this football stadium and they talk to each other. They just talk to each other and they get aggressive at each other a little times. They throw a little bit of jabs back and forth, but they talk. And that's okay. I could see that in a vacuum. The problem it was WWE speak. It was Roman Reigns saying they took Jimmy from me. They took the wise man from me. And it's just like, what is happening? What is this? And Cody being like, Roman, you're not the WWE undisputed universal champion anymore, and you're not the head of the table anymore. And I'm just like, oh no, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, I could see how this would work. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, I get it. Because I watched it with everybody saying, oh, it's incredible. And I'm thinking, okay. And then they start going into at WWE Bad Blood, I need you to have my back so that you can have that. I'm just like, what is happening? This is so bad. This is terrible. Just not for me. But then everybody said this is cinema and this is the greatest thing ever. And it's just one of those things where you have to realize it's not for us and wave your hands and go, okay, fine. If this is what it's going to be, then it's not for me. And that's okay.
Well, I mean, I think Cody's title reign is pretty much stunk.
Oh, it's been brutal.
I mean, he's had some good matches, with the challenger of the months, right? But that's kind of the thing. When you do that long of a build for a guy to win a title, sometimes you don't know what to do once they win it, And I think that's kind of a case of what's kind of happened here. He feels like a sideshow to the bloodline stuff more often than not. Which still to me feels like the centerpiece of everything that they're going to build to come Mania season. And Cody will be in the mix, but and I've been doing some research and deep diving. Have you seen the house show attendances lately?
They're softening. They're softening a little bit.
They're softening. And have you seen the advances for the TV? For the TV lately, it's softening a little. And I know it's kind of that time of year, and I don't have any doubt that once they start ramping up Royal Rumble and WrestleMania and those things, but I don't get the sense that people are like on fire for this Cody title reign. They're not. They just aren't. And it's even some of the ratings, and I know there's a lot of moving pieces now with SmackDown changing networks and and football season affecting Raw, but even the ratings, which are obviously still very much stable, don't feel like it doesn't feel like the television audiences are super hot right now either. Not like how they were earlier in the year and last year. So it's something to monitor is all I'm saying. I'm not predicting doom, and I'm not predicting that this is the start of a downturn. I mean, if The Rock shows up next week, you can, all of a sudden you're selling everything out again.
And you got the Cena retirement tour that's coming up pretty soon too.
That's right.
That'll do well.
Yeah, I mean that's going to crush too. Those though are Band-Aids. You know, I don't want to use that phraseology because you don't really need to. Those are temporary, though. You know, and we all know that. I just don't feel any buzz or excitement around Cody the way there was in the chase. And a lot of times, the money's in the chase. That's where that phrase came from. You know? And it's he is his father's child.
I was going to say, his father. Go look at his father's career if you want to see.
So, you know, it's I just think that there's more interest among their fan base with all this bloodline shit because those people love that. I can't believe people are still into this bloodline stuff, but they are. You know, fighting over the pepper necklace and everything. They're doing a great job with Jacob Fatu. You know, and he's come across very well. Solo Sikoa is a big old nothing. I've lost almost complete faith in Solo Sikoa in being a top star who delivers outside of the fact that that the company is so big and successful now that almost anyone that they choose to be a top star is going to be one. But if this was a promotion which wasn't as strong as it was right now, I think they'd have to rethink Solo.
Oh, I think they already have. Any good. I think they already have a little bit. I mean, I think that they understand because we always talk about this too. Even their most ardent fans, even their most dedicated fans, look at Solo as a dud.
Yeah,
they think he sucks. They think he sucks.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and that's a huge sign because it's very easy to be over in this company right now. So when people aren't, it's kind of it's a massive red flag. You know, so I don't know that match is probably going to annoy us greatly.
Yeah,
but you know, I'm looking forward to Punk and Drew out of morbid curiosity to see if it can deliver, if they allow them to deliver.
You know what I think will be interesting about the mid card's atrocious. We'll go back to the main event.
All the mid card stuff, it's going to be fucking torture just sitting through it.
Well, don't worry. The show's got to end in very quickly because they don't want to butt up against the UFC show that night. So it's got a hard out. So this thing will be very quick, hopefully. But
I think I'm going to take the Craich path of watching it after the fact and getting through it in 90 minutes.
Oh, no. That is the good path now. It once wasn't, but now you can just, every time there's a video package or the entrances, just slap that 30 seconds, slap that 30 seconds, slap that 30 seconds, and it'll be done in 90 minutes.
Because I'm usually like watch it live and get it over with. And not have to be thinking about it on Tuesday. You know what I mean? You know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know, man. This mid-card is so... obviously, if this wasn't what we do, there's no fucking chance I'd watch any of these matches.
Not a chance.
They're so not interesting to me.
But you do owe it yourself to not spend your early Saturday evening watching a 14-minute My Brutality Rhea Ripley entrance. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Just slap that 30 seconds on Tuesday and you're good. Or Saturday night. You know what I do? I do a lot of Saturday nights. So I'll come home on like a Saturday night after those shows and I'll fire it up. And then it's a lot easier too. You're just sitting in bed or sitting on a couch or whatever. Just like bam, 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 bam. Get through all those real quickly.
You can skip all the dead time between the matches.
Right.
You can skip all these interminably long entrances. And you can skip Samantha Irvin.
Yes.
You can skip. And that's important because her ring announcing, I go into these shows annoyed that I have to watch them to begin with. Her ring announcing takes me from annoyed to angry. I hate her ring announcing. I'm not going to say I hate her. I don't know her.
No, I don't know her.
Her work, though, I fucking hate her ring announcing more than I almost hate anything historically in wrestling.
Some of the worst shit. Yeah, I was in the small camp that hated her originally, and I am going to get more people are joining me. More people are joining me, and I will not sleep until everybody joins me, and they will.
Rich,
they will come around soon.
We were talking about the growling ring announcers in this company before anyone knew her name. We're the OG Samantha Irvin haters.
It's true.
We'll wear that badge. And look, the NXT guy too, whatever the fuck his name is, and the other woman that they promoted from NXT that does the growl. All three of them. You know the other one. Who's the other one? The one that used to be on NXT.
So Mike Rome is the guy you're thinking of.
Mike
the guy.
Rome. He can hit the bricks too. And then there's the woman who used
what was
to be
her
on
name?
NXT.
Let me get her name. I don't remember who. Yeah, she was the NXT ring announcer. I forget her name off the top of my head.
NXT growling. Oh, they all growl. But
Right.
She was the NXT growling ring announcer. We were the OG haters of these people.
I forget her name. And you know what?
Whatever.
That's fine. I don't care.
Cares.
I don't
they
care.
Know who we're talking
about.
They know who we're talking about.
Alicia Taylor. Thank you, Sean
Alicia
Cedar.
Taylor.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Well, Sean Cedar is an NXT super fan.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He never misses an episode.
How could you? And I didn't miss an episode this week. I watched NXT's debut on the CW. Did you, Joe?
Well, let's transition to that.
Did you lock in? Did you lock in on the NXT debut on the CW?
You know, a little peek behind the curtain. Rich texts me on Tuesday at about 6:50 Central. And he's like, "Hey, you're gonna I'm gonna do the text in your voice. You're gonna watch the NXT, Joe. You're gonna watch the NXT." And I'm like, this motherfucker does not want to do an instant reaction. Please tell me. Then I was doing the Booker T game. I'm like, please tell me this motherfucker doesn't want to do
Oh
an
my
instant
God,
reaction.
I can see that. I can see how you might think that. No,
that's what I was thinking, and then I was like, I was ready. I was going to watch it, but I didn't want to tell you that because I didn't want to get roped into doing fucking content of this. So I think the answer I gave you was like very ambiguous when you asked me if I was going to be watching this fucking show. Let me see if I can find it.
I got it right here.
And if it's airworthy,
I'll find out that. Well, actually, I don't have that text. I don't know what happened to it.
let me see. Let's see.
Maybe it was on the old Slack.
What day was
maybe
Tuesday?
It was a Slack.
Oh, maybe it wasn't a text. Hold on. Whatever it was. Basically, I was like, oh, I don't know. I might be watching it because I was scared of what your response was going to be.
Right.
Because the last thing I wanted to do was spend fucking Tuesday at 11:30 p.m. Tuesday night breaking down
NXT on the CW. Yeah. So I actually had that brief. Remember, there was a time last week where I had that brief thought about going to the show. Remember that? Because it was in Chicago, and I was like, I should go to that show. And then I was like, why am I thinking about that? Then I woke up that day, and I was like, maybe I'll go to that show. And the nurse is like, oh, I'm going to go, rock climb after work, so I won't be home. And I'm like, I could go to that show. I don't know why. Like, this part of my brain kept telling me, go to this show. And I was like, don't go to the show, Rich. What are you doing? Thankfully, I get to work, and my guys wanting to play basketball. I do not have a change of clothes. I don't have another change of clothes. Like, I have like what I was wearing to work that I could basically and put shorts on and go play basketball in. But I didn't have another change of clothes. I didn't have deodorant with me. I had nothing else with me. So I went and played basketball, and I was hopeless. And usually I have a towel. Usually I have a change of clothes. If I know I'm going to do something after I play basketball, I'll take a shower. I'll do that sort of stuff. I had none of that stuff. And I think that was a sign to just don't, because I went and played basketball and I said, oh shit, I can't go to NXT now. I'm a sweaty mess. I'm sweaty and I smell. Not that would be all that much different in a wrestling crowd, but for me personally, I would like to not smell and sweat while I'm in a wrestling crowd. So it was like a sign from the gods or whatever, where I was like, oh, I can't go to the show now. Thank God. And then I came home and then just watched it instead. But that somebody blessed me with the idea of just go play basketball and be sweaty and then you'll have to just go home and eat food and watch NXT on your couch. And that's what I did instead. I will not be repeating that next week for NXT on the CW next Tuesday. I'm good. I watched the NXT CW debut. I am very good. And we'll have to see if other people are following me as well, because this did a monster number, I would say, for the CW and for NXT. So it had 895,000 total viewers and a 0.26 in the 18 to 49 demo. Now that show went head to head with the vice presidential debate, which drew a cool 43 million viewers across various networks. So a lot of people locked in.
It did, but that's true. But can I say that historically, the NXT audience has not been affected by politics?
Yeah, they don't care.
It hasn't been affected by politics. When I was doing ratings, when I was doing Dynamite versus NXT ratings way back 5 years ago, big political stuff would happen. It would take a big chunk out of Dynamite. It would take nothing out of NXT. Okay? Their audience has never been affected by real world events to near the same extent that the AEW audience is affected, or even like the Monday Night Raw audience is affected by football or what have you. For whatever reason, you can apply your own answers that, I'm not going to say nothing. But that NXT audience, so I don't know. We're going to have to wait this out. Obviously, I think this is going to be the highest number they ever do because history would tell us that based on when these shows debut. So are they going to settle at 0.2 that would be a massive success for CW if they have a show on Tuesday nights that's doing 0.2s. And I feel like that's where they're gonna be based on this number. I think they're gonna be slightly higher than they were on USA, which totally makes sense moving to CW, right?
Absolutely.
So instead of doing 0.17s or whatever, they're gonna do like 0.2s. So from that standpoint, with the larger potential audience, they're increasing their audience, which is exactly what's going to happen if AEW has a show on Fox, by the way.
Absolutely.
You're going to hear a lot of bad analysis about that too, where people are going to say, "Oh, you're going to put that on Fox. They're going to do 500,000 viewers on Fox." Stop. Okay. You're going to get that bump from simply being on the network and having all those homes. But so you give it a couple weeks. We'll give it a month and we'll see where it's at a month into the run. But last week we had a hard time really putting a finger on what we thought it might do. And 895.26. And remember, not just the debut, but with CM Punk and pushed as this a world title match at the end of the show, and all their big feuds and Julia debuting and everything. So this obviously is not where they're going to live. And I strongly suspect the VP debate, I'm not going to say had no effect, but had very little effect, just based historically.
Yeah, historically, the NXT audience does not move very much for sports or politics. It's usually just that audience is pretty locked in normally to what they want to do. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But a good number I thought for their week one, but and it just kind of shows the CW too. And that's, one thing that we try to stress to people. Again, knowing what's going on in the sports TV business, what's going on in the TV business, a lot of people kind of laughed at the CW. Wow, the CW, what? But if you weren't following what they were doing completely transforming their network into more sports-oriented programming. And the Xfinity race, which, we've been kind of following as well. That's NASCAR's NXT, basically. The best way to put it is NASCAR's NXT. That debuted on the CW in Bristol, which I guess it doesn't mean anything to you, but on 906,000 viewers. But the demo was only a 0.12 for the Xfinity race. So a much older demo for the Xfinity race, but still 906 total viewers. So our 906,000 total viewers. So that kind of gives you an idea of one of the, where the CW is looking to go in the future is obviously raise their demo up a little bit, raise the total viewership up a little bit, and become, one of these players in the sports, TV realm. And as far as that, though, I think one thing that was maybe a great awakening for a lot of people, and I wrote about it this week on flagshippatreon.com, is that with NXT moving to the CW, there's a lot of change that now happens with NXT. I think a lot of people didn't quite realize this until they woke up on Tuesday. Now, the NWA is gone. The NWA Power page is a page not found. That shit's gone. That shit is gone. It is now on X. They're going to be on X.
And think about the alternate timeline. What this would have been such a boon to the NWA. And we talked about that at the time. We're like, wow, the NWA is going to have a real audience. And then WWE moseyed on into town and cut this deal. And that was such, and by no fault of Corgan's own, right? Missing out on, they wouldn't have done this number. But, man, those two shows that they had lined up for this network would have just been a tremendous boon for them. And now they're running their show on fucking X.
Right.
Which obviously they got a better deal from Twitter, or they just put the shows back on YouTube. But we know YouTube is, you and I had this conversation earlier this week. YouTube is penny. You are chasing pennies on YouTube.
Yes, you are.
So whatever deal they cut with X, or I would assume they have some kind of deal, because
who knows?
I don't know what's going on, but they could have been on the CW, and it just got yanked out from underneath them. But go ahead and make that point you're going to make about the NXT.
Yeah. So what people found out on Tuesday is that if you go to Peacock, you can no longer watch old NXT TV. If you wanted to watch an NXT TV show from 2021, no, you can't. 2019, nope. All of it. You can watch takeovers and you can watch NXT specials, but you can no longer watch NXT television because the CW has the rights to that. Now, if you go to the CW website, as of yesterday, all they had up was the last week's episode. And that's probably what I would assume. It talks to what we talked about last night with content dumps. Those days are kind of over. The idea that like the CW is going to say, yeah, sure, give us 7 years of NXT television to upload to our app or whatever. They don't care. Is anybody going to watch that shit? Probably not. No. Okay, fine. We'll give you next week's episode. So that's all you get on the CW now. The CW website is week by week episodes. So far, that's not to say they aren't going to upload all the old stuff, but so far that's what they're doing. So if you are in the US and you want to watch an old episode of NXT, you're out of luck. It's gone. There's no legal way to do it anymore. Yeah. It's kind of wild. Yeah. It's kind of wild. And this is going to be the new reality that a lot of people are going to have to get used to. Very soon when they're going to go to Netflix, Raw, that sort of stuff's not going to be available anymore. On Hulu, people used to do next day watching of SmackDown and Raw on Hulu. That's over. That has expired. They are done with that. SmackDown will now be available on, USA, so presumably the SmackDown episodes will be available on Peacock. And that's true, but you'll have to wait 30 days. They want you to watch it live. They want you to watch it whatever. So yeah, you can follow SmackDown if you want to wait 30 days for SmackDown to hit Peacock. I can't imagine that many people are doing that. And Raw, who the fuck knows when they go to Netflix what's going to be up there in the archives and whatnot, or how much Netflix is going to want. So we're entering a whole new reality right now with particularly WWE. I mean, AEW's always been in this position where none of their stuff was available. WWE, we've been spoiled for the last 10 years that all their stuff was available. Everything was available. Everything they've ever done is available, and all these territory types are available, and all this stuff is available. We're now seeing the dominoes fall. NXT TV, no longer available. SmackDown will become increasingly unavailable. Raw will become increasingly unavailable. Like it's a very, what happens with the old pay-per-views? What Peacock is still running obviously for a little while, but when they move over to Netflix, what are they going to do? And we had the same discussion with Max as well in AEW. Is people, the interpretation of the AEW library is, are they going to upload everything? Are they going to upload everything that AEW's ever done to Max, or are they just going to upload the shows that air on Max, the Dynamites and the Collisions that air on Max? I think it's probably, I think it's just the ones that are going to air on Max, but we'll see.
I keep seeing people report that it's going to be the whole archive.
Okay.
I have not seen that wording officially anywhere.
I haven't either, but okay.
I'm with you. I think the wording is very ambiguous. And
I'd be stunned. I'd be stunned if they upload every single episode of Dynamite and every episode of Collision ever and every Dark and all these pay-per-views. I'd be stunned if that happened.
I think what WWE learned, and I think what everyone has learned, is people just don't watch this shit. And it's a shame because I think for a while there, for about a decade, we were really living in a great era for content, and it's slowly going away because people don't watch it. It's a shame.
Yeah, we're the idiots. People listening to this, we're the niche of the niche of the niche of the niche that's watching this old shit. We're it.
Yeah.
There's not many others.
So there's just no, it's a little sad. One day we're going to look back at like the height of the WWE network and how great we had it. Because we really did have it pretty great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Even with all the complaints of not putting enough stuff up and everything.
That first day, man. Remember that first day when you logged on, you're like, oh my God. I mean, where do you start?
Where do you even start?
Yeah.
Where do you start? I used to just leave on the live channel.
That's a bad idea. The live channel was so bad, though. It only showed Survivor Series 2008 for there was that one time.
History, and it was the history of WrestleMania doc, and some random pay-per-view, and then it was like whatever that week's main event was, because main event I think was network exclusive.
Yes. It was a Survivor Series 2011, I think, was the one that they just for some reason showed.
Was it. Yeah.
It showed like 4 times a day. It was like, can we program this a little bit? Like, could somebody do something?
But the novelty of it, I would just leave it on in the as background noise, and it was hard to know even where to start as to what to watch. You're like, oh well, shit, I got to watch all these pay-per-views that I never saw, and it's like, oh, but there's so many, and oh, but then there's this match I want to rewatch that I haven't been. It says you didn't even know where to go, where to start, and it's in one day you're going to turn around and those world-class archives that are pretty near complete from like 82 to 87 on there, right? Like, fuck, I wish I would have prioritized watching all of that shit, instead of giving up halfway through 1983, because it'll always be there. No, it won't be. So, I mean, fair warning, I look at the end of that Peacock deal, and if you've been watching shit on there, you need to get to some stuff on there. I'd fucking watch it. I'd get that going. Or it's going to, we're going to go back to the old days where you're going to have to find, or the people who are who handled it, start downloading all that shit and ripping it off of there now for the rest of us. Because I think Rich is right. I think this sort of era that we've been in, I think we were spoiled, and I do think it's probably going away.
Right, the content era.
There's just no money in it.
No, there's no money in it. There's zero money. And it's not worth the bandwidth. It's not worth the bandwidth for Netflix to get. Think of how many thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of territory things WWE has. Netflix doesn't want that shit.
Then just the way the culture is shifted, you have to scrub everything.
Right, they don't want to deal with that shit. That's why I'm very curious on like Raw. I'm very curious on the history of Raw because, man, you do this McMahon documentary and you look at what's all in there and what the content is. I would not be surprised if someone from Netflix said, you know what, how many people are on average are actually watching this stuff? You know what, it's not worth it to us. We talked about that with Peacock, and it never did happen. People would scrub it and go, holy fuck, what is happening here? This is ridiculous.
Peacock did scrub a lot of it.
They did scrub a lot, yeah. They did a good job of getting through some of that stuff.
So, Peacock thought ahead, and they did get rid of a lot of it. So, because all it was going to take was one nosy blogger to start poking around and be like, oh my gosh, this, and it would have been doom. So they thought ahead and they got rid of it all. But as far as this NXT show, it was the shits.
So bad.
I guess Wesley and Zach Wentz, their plunder match was okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm so over the plunder matches that, you know what I mean? Like
when Wesley came down to the ring with a shopping cart with a trash can in it and kendo sticks, I was just like, fuck me. How many times am I going to watch this shit? This Al Snow bullshit hardcore match that has existed in this exact form since 1999 and just will never go away. The fucking shopping cart with the can, the generic trash can, the generic steel trash can with fucking kendo sticks in it. I'm like, God damn it. But those guys, they worked their asses off. I will give them credit. They worked their asses off. They tried to do as much as they could. The crowd didn't seem to care as much about them until things really got going with them. I'll give them credit. They worked their ass off. That was a good match. I'll call it good. I'm not going to call it great. But a good match, Wesley and Zachary Wentz. And the rest of the show I thought was tremendously disappointing. And also, production-wise, I wonder what people are going to think about this. The CW, the amount of commercial breaks you get on the CW. Now, this is a network that doesn't get carriage fees because it's a broadcast network. It's over the air, does not get carriage fees. And they are going to make their money back because, trust me, they're probably in the red a lot with all these sports TV properties they're buying. And they need money, so they're going to show as many ads as possible. And oh, my God, did they show so many commercials on this show. So many. I think 5 to 10 minutes. We had Adam Berger, who writes for us at voicesofwrestling.com, was tracking it, and I forget his exact numbers or whatever. But the amount and the frequency of commercials was way, way more than it is for normal WWE television on like USA or anything like that. I mean, they were hitting you with commercials and long commercial breaks as well. So that's another new reality you're going to have as well if you want to watch these. Oh, and by the way, if you want to watch these episodes on the CW app filled with ads everywhere. You click a play and it's going to play a bunch of ads before, a bunch of ads in between, a bunch of ads in the middle. It's going to break in and a bunch of times. And the CW stuff is not available on any other app. You can't go on Max. You can't go on Peacock. You can only watch it on the CW app. So if you want to follow NXT television, that's your way to do it, and you're just going to be inundated with ads. Joe, I like cable. We're going to be the last people on earth to defend cable. People are going to see it our way when they see how annoying these streaming shows are going to be with all these fucking ads and stuff coming up soon. Because trust me, Netflix is going to have ads for Raw. They're not making their money back on your $15 a month subscription. So get ready for a lot of ads and a lot of people trying to make their money back on ads. So just get used to that.
Cable's worth it for the convenience factor to me, but I understand everyone has a situation that's different.
Of course.
But yeah, that match was fine. But yeah, like you said, Raven on Sunday Night Heat coming with the shopping cart. Like how many, but
the shopping cart. Oh my God. Can't do it.
Look, the main event was just such a nothing match. And the fact of the matter is there's no point repeating the same talking points. Trick Williams is still incredibly green and not a very good wrestler. That's just the bottom line. And everyone knows I love everything else about him, but it might be starting to get to shit or get off the pot time. Whether this guy is, he's 30 years old now, Rich. So
I think a lot of people don't know that. I think if you quizzed a lot of people on how old Trick Williams is, I think you'd have a lot of 24, 25, that sort of range. And I think a lot of people do not realize that he is 60 years old, or 30 years old.
Wow,
he's not. He looks great. He looks great for his age. Yeah.
yeah, right. Well, he's not Rico Constantino. Let's take it easy. What he was like 45 when he came up.
Yeah, he looks great. Yeah, Rico was great.
Yeah. No, but look, Ethan Page is just the jaggiest jag who ever lived.
Oh, it's so
we all
jag.
knew that, though.
Yeah, it's so
we all
jaggy.
knew that. He's just a total non-entity. And this was a 2-star match, with Punk as the ref and everything, and they did the right thing and put the title back on Trick with their big audience that they knew that they were going to have. So from a booking standpoint, they got everything right. But man, it's just a dull match with one guy who, now look, you don't have to be Red Bastien to be on the WWE main roster. I mean, don't get me wrong, but there is a working standard on the main roster, and it helps to be a better worker. There's no question about it. And I still think Trick has some work to do from that standpoint. Ethan Page, he's Ethan Page.
He is what he is. He is what he is, and he's exactly who we thought he was.
He's exactly who that's right. He's the Dennis Green quote all the way. Ethan Page is who we thought he was, and he always will be. And the thing with Ethan Page, there is no next gear, Rich. This is who he is. That next gear we always talk about with him, it isn't in there, and it never will be. And whatever. I'm glad. I understand. Maybe he's making more money than ever. Maybe he's happy. Those things are all great. But as far as from a fan watching his matches, it's not. It doesn't exist, and it never will exist. He's a nothing. Roxanne Perez, Julia. I thought the portion of this match before the commercial break this match was trending towards being a horrendous bomb.
I agree.
They weren't on the same page.
Slow, very slow work.
Slow, messy. I thought after the commercial break, they got it together and had an acceptable 3-star match, close to 2 3/4 3-star match. You want to call it good? Go ahead. But look, Julia has never done a thing for me. I don't get it. I get the look. She has charisma and a great look. And listen, was I tracking down every Julia match I could find when she was in Japan? No, I was not. But the stuff I've seen, I never really got it with her. She doesn't connect with me. I don't get it. I don't know how she gained this rep of being this fantastic worker. I've never seen it. That could be because I've never seen, but the stuff that you recommended me was allegedly great. So I don't know. Roxanne Perez, I think, continues to just be. She's going to go to the main roster. She's going to be a big star, and she's going to annoy me for the next 10 to 15 years because I can't stand watching her do anything. Her dumb faces, her shitty work. She just annoys me to no end. And I guess the tag match, which was just a nothing match with JC Jane, who I've really taken a liking to. Someone made a good point about her, though. I used to call her Toxic Attraction number 3, and I feel bad about it because she grew on me over the years. But someone made a funny point on Twitter, I think it may have been, or maybe the Discord, I can't remember. She's like the old auntie of the brand. She's been there for like 3 different repackages.
She's been there a lot of time. Yeah, and it's 3 different repackages, and now she's in a unit that you would think, you're like, oh, is that the same unit? No, it's a different unit, but it's called Fatal Influence. It may as well be Toxic Attraction. It's like, she feels like just like she's the grandma of NXT, and
yeah, it's crazy. And Jada Parker, everybody likes, and Lola Vice, some people like. And Fallon Henley, I don't know. She's just,
that match felt like it was never ending. I can't believe it's only 10 minutes long. I left the room, came back, did a thing, left the room, and it's still going. I'm like, how is this still going? Fallon Henley and JC Jane, Jada Parker, Lola Vice, let's go home. I don't think we need this many. So it's, you had 4 matches, a ton of commercial breaks. You should know too, the Roxanne Perez Julia opener, which is really not. It was nothing. It was a nothing match. The ending was Cora Jade came back and returned and helped Roxanne Perez defeat Julia. So now the feud is kind of Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade. But very interesting to note that Julia, this big giant signing they have is basically her debut is losing and being, a bit player in Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade having their feud, and they met later backstage, and Roxanne Perez was like, what was that what you were doing out there? And Cora Jade said, well, I like what you've become. And Roxanne Perez goes, maybe we can talk about it or something. I was like, great.
It's still, at the end of the day, it's still
shit.
NXT.
It sucks.
And NXT is the worst. It's the fucking dirt worst.
Garbage. Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah.
I'm not going to break down fucking Ms. TV with Oba Femi.
Oh
and Tony
God,
D'Angelo.
No. I'm good.
If Toxic Attraction number 3 is the old granny of NXT, then Tony D'Angelo is the grandpa of NXT.
Oh, I do have to call one thing out. Everybody that lives in Chicago knows when Tony D was up there going, I grew up right here in Chicago, and everybody goes, yeah, and he goes, yeah, I grew up in the streets of Chicago. My man, he grew up.
Like he's Johnny Torrio. Take it easy.
Yeah, chill out, brother. First off, he grew up in Oak Park, which I believe has the highest percentage of Frank Lloyd Wright built houses in the country. So not exactly the streets of Chicago. But yeah, so it was kind of funny. It's like, come on, Tony Tits. Like, what are you chill it out, buddy? You're not, like Joey Ariel. Like, calm down, buddy. You went to Oak Park River Forest High School. Trust me. Anybody that's listening that's from the Chicagoland area is nodding where if he goes, hey, I came from the streets of Chicago. It's like, no, you didn't. You came from Oak Park. It's very different. It'd be like somebody that grew up in a Manhattan high-rise being like, yeah, I'm from the Bronx. And it's like, are you? Aren't you from a Manhattan high-rise? And it's like, well, yeah. They're close. They're close to each other. I get it, but you're not from there. But, yeah, it was so bad. I mean, Obafemi trying to have this thing, and then just, fucking Tony Tits getting on the mic and being like, hey, there's something different about you and me. It's so bad. This fucking Spirit Halloween Italian guy. Bullshit. Yeah.
He continues to be an SNL sketch Italian is basically what he is. And look, that's not gonna that gimmick is not gonna work on the,
hey, yeah, exactly. It's just like, oh my God. Just to
say that.
Yeah.
But they've done segments where he's like, hold on a minute, I'm finishing my cappuccino, and it's like it's ridiculous, and that's never going to work on the main roster.
No.
So he's going to have to he's either going to have to adjust it to some extent or something, but he's been there for ages, and it makes you think that they're not confident and that they could do with anything with him moving forward. But that's enough. I'm tired of talking about this NXT. It drew 7,500 fans to Rosemont.
Sold out the building that fits way more than 7,500.
Well, yeah. Well, it's still
Mike Johnson was told WWE sources told him they sold out the show, which is like,
well, I've had some things to say about PW Insider, and they're all kind of coming to pass.
They are, yeah. WWE sources indicated that they sold out to the Allstate Arena, but
sure, all right,
okay. But what about the other 4,000 seats that are usually available at that arena? We're not going to count those. Okay, that's fine. That's all right.
I heard that Scherer praised Meltzer's performance on the McMahon doc. Is that true?
Oh my God.
I don't know if that's true. I heard. I'm not like doing a bit.
I find that hard to believe, but yeah, I'll have to.
We'll have to look into that because I thought that maybe I've read that somewhere, but I don't know because at first he was insanely jealous that Meltzer was on the McMahon doc. Remember, I was like, but someone I don't know. I don't remember where I saw it. I saw it in passing. That people were shocked because he just gave legitimate praise to. I don't know how you can't praise Dave on the Meltzer doc.
So yeah.
By the way, I finished it, and I'm not going to go deep on this, but I did watch the final 3.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have watched 5 and 5.
I told you.
But
I told you.
This was totally just a history of WWE documentary at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And episode 6 greatly disappointed me. I thought they were softer than bread.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were softer.
That episode sucked.
Than bread on Vince. My
review of it will be available at flagship.patreon.com pretty soon, but I'm exactly the same as you. I people were saying, oh, just wait till episode 6. Just wait till episode 6. If that's what I waited for, that was shit. They were Charmin soft on Vince in that episode.
Who could have been more useless than John Cena and Booker T on this thing, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Those are the 2 most useless people on this.
Cody?
John Cena and Booker T. Oh, Cody was pretty useless too. He provided nothing. He those 3 though, and I'm sure there might be a couple others, but they stood out to me. Cena had nothing to say. But you knew he wouldn't because he's careful about his image and everything. The Rock didn't really have anything to say, but again, carbon copy of Cena. Booker T just had nothing to say. And you're right, Cody had nothing to say. But you could throw Cody in the category of Cena and The Rock, right? He's very careful with his image and everything. He wasn't going to misstep with his words, and he made sure to say all the sports entertainment buzzwords and everything. But I thought episode 6 was softer than bread and very disappointing. 4 and 5 were just a complete waste of everybody's time. I don't know why we needed a recap of angles and all. You were dead on.
I told you. It was ridiculous. At a certain point, I'm like, what are we? We're wasting time on this bullshit.
What's this have to do with learning about Vince McMahon?
Right.
It's. I have to be honest. I couldn't even recommend this to my wife. I think she'd be really bored.
Bored to tears. That's my thing. When anytime I would bitch about like, oh, why are we learning about The Rock and Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18? People would say, oh, you need to do it for the casual fans. Imagine sitting next to your wife, your partner, and I keep talking about this in the Flagship Patreon reviews. You're sitting next to your wife or your husband or your partner or your friend or whatever, and Triple H is like, yeah, we went out for the curtain call because Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were leaving the company, and so we went out there and we hugged each other, and it's not what you're supposed to do. You bored out of your fucking mind. How bored would your wife be?
They're not going to understand why.
No, they don't care. That doesn't mean it. That means stuff to us wrestling fans. Yeah. We know these stories because we've been told these stories 10,000 fucking times. And imagine your wife sitting there as The Rock goes, yes, we went out there in Toronto for WrestleMania 18 and we didn't know what the crowd was going to do. And then Hulk Hogan goes, yeah, brother, we just had to go out there and we called it in the ring to try to figure out what the fans were going to do. And then it's The Rock saying, yeah, and then I was kind of surprised because the fans were booing me instead of cheering. Your wife's going to be, how quickly is she grabbing her phone and scrolling? You know what I mean? Or just straight up leaving the room.
I'll give you another good one. Why did we need the story of the rise of Dwayne Johnson going through the Nation of Domination and all of this? What does that have to do with Vince McMahon and learning about Vince McMahon and who he is?
Well, what it did do, and I thought for a second, oh, here we go. But then they just decided to not do this. They had the point where The Rock says, yeah, I went up to Vince after I won the title, and I said, I'm the first champion of color that you've ever had, or world champion of color that you've ever had. And I was thinking, oh, okay. Great opportunity to bring up, hey, Tony Atlas is here. Ask him about Saba Simba. Great opportunity to talk about Vince McMahon's very uncomfortable history with race, right? No, The Rock says, oh, Vince McMahon, he always told me, Dwayne, I don't care what color you are. I only see stars. I don't see color.
The old red, purple, green line.
Right. I don't care if you're red, purple, or green. As long as you draw money, that's all that matters. Unless you're a star, that's all that matters.
Taking us through The Rock's career arc, I'm watching this thinking, what does this have to do with
exactly?
Vince?
It's infuriating. It's infuriating to watch. It's a joke.
All you need to do is say, I get the point. They were trying to say Vince had to make new stars in the Attitude Era, but then just say that he made Steve Austin and The Rock. We don't need to go through their career arcs because that's not important to this story. If this were a history of the Attitude Era, which we've seen a million times, or a history of the company, yes, you go a little more in depth on it. This didn't call for that. This 6-part documentary, 6 hours, probably wasted 4 hours on utter nonsense that we didn't need. Mm-hmm. And that's disappointing. And I have to reference back. There's such a dichotomy between this and the Pete Rose documentary. I mean, I'm telling you, the Pete Rose thing is 4 parts. I would implore people, if you have any interest whatsoever, to go watch the Pete Rose doc and compare the difference in how, I don't want to necessarily use the word ruthless, because I don't think it was an intentional hit piece on Pete Rose, but man, did it pull no punches. And it let him hang himself, and it was good, bad, and ugly. Mostly bad and ugly, because that's Pete. And it makes you, because I went back and watched it again after Pete died. It makes you, it contextualizes what a poor job they did on the Vince thing. Mm-hmm. It really does. It could have been so much.
I turn on that doc so hard, and I think it's absurd. It's awful. It is. I can't recommend.
You
don't
learn much about Vince.
You learn nothing.
You don't learn much about Vince.
David Bixenspan had a great appearance on Jesse Collins' podcast, Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, here on the Voice of Wrestling Podcast Network, and brought up a great point. And those guys talked about it a lot on that show. The documentary had so little why. It had no why. It had a lot of, here's what's happening, this is what happened, and then. And it was a lot of and thens. And then this happened. And then The Rock happened. And then Stone Cold happened. And then Rock and Hogan happened. And then, okay, great. Why? Tell us why I'm watching this. What the purpose of, like, why? Why am I watching this segment? Why did Vince do what he did? Why is this? There was no why. It was just, and this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And even episode 6, which they had to re-edit with the Janelle Grant stuff, like you said, soft as fucking bread on that too. Just did not attack or address any of the real or come at it with like here. The best way to put this is, and this is what I've told people that have not watched the documentary and asked me if they should watch it. I say, understand that this documentary was done and completed, and then and then the lawsuit came. The Janelle Grant lawsuit came. And they had time to sort of redo episode 1 and sort of redo episode 6, but didn't touch the middle episodes and continued on the narrative that, because this documentary was supposed to be, here's Vince McMahon, this eccentric, misunderstood, complicated human being who took this carny world of wrestling and made it global, and then it all came crashing down, and then he built it back up to where it is today. That's the story. And that's the tone of those middle episodes. The tone of the documentary in those middle episodes are, here is Vince McMahon building this thing back up after it all almost came crumbling. Oh, and then he also got sued by Janelle Grant. Yeah. Oh, and then now we're out. Bye. And we got to go. And it's like, whoa, what? Like the tone, they didn't change the tone at all.
Right. Not how did all of this lead to his self-destruction and the culture he created catching up to him. None of that. That could have been the running through line. And maybe they would have done that if this whole thing was made after the Grant stuff had come out. I don't know.
Too damn bad. You know what I mean? Like too fucking bad. Redo the whole thing.
I agree. But I do, they're obviously in a tricky spot, but I agree. Do it. You could do a better job. You got all the footage. You got hours and hours of footage of talking to these people. I will say Bruce Pritchard made a complete fool of himself.
Oh, that episode 6. That part was so good.
He made a complete fool of himself. Okay. So that was fun to watch. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't want to do another full segment on it, but I did finish it, and
worthless. I told you.
It wasn't.
You wasted 3 hours of your life, or 4 hours of your life. In totality, you wasted 6 hours of your life. So
yeah, didn't learn much, if anything. Didn't think I would though.
I learned even less than I thought I would, to be honest.
Much like Ethan Page, it is what we thought it would be, right? It's like, I don't know if it's fair to lump Ethan Page in with that.
Yeah, poor Ethan Page.
He's just out there collecting his toys. We should probably leave him alone.
Ego. The song is the best. It just perfectly matches his wrestling abilities at the same time. Yeah. Dun 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 dun. Ego. Just the slow. You're like, all right. Anyway, all right. Let's get these final topics here real quick. New Japan Destruction in Kobe. We're going to give this the little bit of a rush treatment here, but I don't know. What'd you think of Destruction in Kobe? Naito and Great Okan in your main event. I thought it was, I don't know. I don't feel with New Japan anymore. I don't know what it is, man. You know how you're that way with Dragon Gate? You just can't feel anything when you watch it. I'm kind of that way with New Japan right now.
I hear you, and I understand it. And to continue that, like I'm a little more into it than you are, and you're more into the Dragon Gate than I am. So, but it's similar takes. I'll go through my notes then, since I don't feel like you have much to say.
I got a little bit. I can jump in, but yeah, go through your notes, and I'll jump in when appropriate.
So the opener, Dragon Dia, Raisuke Taguchi, Shota Umino over Tiger Mask, Tomo Akihama, Yuji Nagata. I have no notes on that. That was just Dragon Dia. It's Kobe. 4,500, not bad number though. Not a bad number for the show. I'm not doing the cartwheels that some people are doing, but I think that that's a solid number, and it looks like they have a really good advance for King of Pro Wrestling, so that's good. But yeah, there was nothing notable to note here. Shota Umino scored the pin over Hanma, as we figured he would score the pin, being a guy who they like, who wasn't figured in on the show. The second match was Bushi, Hiromu, and Yota Tsuji over Callum Newman, Francisco Akira, and Jeff Cobb. I thought the stuff with Hiromu and Francesco Akira was electric. I thought they were great together. And I thought that there was nothing else really of note in the match. Everybody else was kind of going through the paces. But Hiromu and Akira had their working shoes on and made this, by the standards of the second match, a multi-man prelim match on a New Japan show, a lot better than what you normally get. Gabe Kidd and Hiroki Goto. So they do the deal where they brawl and they get the double count out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, I love this fucking finish because we all know why they're making this match, right? Because Goto accidentally pinned Kidd when the match went sideways. And I'm coming into this thinking Kidd is just going to get his win back. And when they did the double count out, I'm like, this is great because now they're taking a pile of shit and turning it into lemonade. They're going to do a little program and have these guys feud.
Well, I also thought it worked too because these guys were like unhinged monsters and they were just idiots. They were just fighting everywhere and they wouldn't get back in the ring. And it would have been perfect to just call it and say, no, you guys are just, no, get out of here. Go, just get out of here. You guys can't, because it was an intense brawl outside of the crowd and stuff. It was cool. I liked it a lot. I like the idea that these two idiots can't get in the ring together. So you know what? We're throwing it out. If you guys want to have a match down the line, have a match down the line. But for right now, you guys got to go because you're unhinged monsters and you can't get this thing on track.
Yeah, but then they did the gimmick where Kidd demanded they restart the match. And I'm like, oh, man, now Kidd's just going to win. But then Goto won. And I'm like, they got me again. This is fucking great, because what they're doing here is they've turned an unfortunate situation and the wrong guy winning in a tag into a program. And why the fuck not? Kidd can go over in the end. But what they also did was Goto set himself up to be Finley's next challenger, right? Or he came out for one of the matches. Let me look at my notes. Didn't he like stare down Finley after Finley beat Yoshihashi? Wasn't that what it was? Or was it? It wasn't Shingo, right? It was Finley. It definitely wasn't Naito. I feel like we're getting Finley Goto at some point, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we're getting it at King of Pro Wrestling. So that's that's the one.
Just scroll down my notes, idiot. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. He came out because so they like really made the most out of a fucked up situation with, the Jake Lee injury. So, and I thought this was a lot of fun from start to finish. I would have been annoyed if Gabe Kidd would have won though. As most everyone predicted, Rohei Aoiwa was the new TMDK member. And he was put over strong with Fujita and Zack as they beat Sanada, Taichi, and Taka. Taka takes the pin. It was in, it's out. Oiwa got the win over Taka, and it accomplished what it needed to accomplish. Never title match. In this case, the House of Torture was Evil, Show, and Yujiro. With Tanahashi, Bolton, and Yano obviously as the champions. They retain. I get a kick out of this because early in the match, Dick Togo used one of the turnbuckle pads to like hit Bolton from the outside or whatever. And I watched the Japanese commentary. I don't even know. Was there English commentary?
There was. But I watched Japan as well. I watched the Japanese commentary as well this time.
I just click whatever and watch it. I don't fucking know. So apologies to no offense to Walker Stewart, but if I click it in this Japanese commentary, I'm not like, darn, I got to find the English. I just watch it. I don't care. So he hits him with the pad, and they're like, Dick Togo! And they act all shocked. After how many years are we going to keep acting shocked that House of Torture does this stuff? So, I don't know. For this match and this kind of match,
it was fine. Energy. Yeah, it was fine for this.
I thought it was a little more than fine. I thought it had good energy and was a little better than I was.
Well, I meant the House of Torture BS is like fine in a match like this. If it's contained in a situation like this, I have no problem with it. It's fine.
Yeah. How could you care? Dookie retains over Kanemaru. The two key spots were when Kanemaru took Dookie by the leg on the apron and then threw his knee into the ground to and then he worked over his knee. That was a really good spot. And then, he threw his knee into the floor from the apron. And then later on when Dookie had the Doki Choki, are we still calling it that?
I am. I don't care if anybody else is. I'm calling it the Doki Choki. I don't give a fuck.
So he had him in the Doki Choki, and Show rings the bell, and Doki, like a moron, lets go. That was the other key spot. You would think you would scout the House of Torture and understand that when the bell rings, you should probably just hold on to your hold, just in case.
Just in case.
Right? Just in case. But anyway, Doki overcomes and wins, but then he gets attacked by Show and the wrench in the aftermath. So we're going to get another House of Torture challenge for this title. And then I know Rich, you're very excited about to see Doki versus Show on King of Pro Wrestling.
I do like Doki, but man, I don't know if I can get down with a Show singles match.
Another House of Torture match.
Yeah, that's gonna be
they're
tough.
giving Doki an extended run.
They
I didn't
really
think
are.
He'd hold the title this long.
Yeah,
but I thought it'd be more of a gold watch. But
is he gonna lose it to Show? Oh, he's gonna lose it to Show.
He might. He could. I think he could.
Yeah.
Shingo defeats Hanare to win the Never title. I thought this was the best match on the show.
I love this match. This made me feel again. This made me feel again, man, in New Japan. It's these guys just a bell ring and they just beat the fuck out of each other for 20 minutes. And it's like, yeah, after having so much House of Torture stuff in the previous two matches, it was nice to have a bell ring and two guys just go out there and beat the hell out of each other. And yeah, if it's if you're kind of tired of the Never open weight style match, quote unquote, that's fine. But I don't really ever get tired of two guys beating the hell out of each other and then one guy emerging victorious and winning a title because of it. Like, I don't know, that part of me is never going to be upset. And these guys were no bullshit. And it was a lot of, like you always say, dumb jock pro wrestling. The finish was Shingo Takagi just dropping Hanare on his fucking neck. He was trying to do the Last of the Dragon or the whatever the fuck. It just dropped the guy on his neck. And the commentary was just like, oh, you could tell they were just like, no, that didn't go the way it went. But it probably did go the way they wanted it to go because Hanare's a fucking idiot. He's a dumb jock pro wrestler. So he's probably like, drop me on my fucking neck, dude. And Shingo did. And Shingo's a great dumb jock pro wrestler. So these guys just dropped each other on their head and slapped and chopped each other. And then Shingo won and won the Never Openweight title. How do you not love this?
No, look, these guys are incapable of having a match that isn't good. Their styles mesh totally. It's like when Hanare wrestles Ishii. It's going to be good. Hanare doesn't have great chemistry with everyone. He was going for the Ultima very early in this match. He was trying to work over Shingo's neck, and he was going for that full Nelson. Isn't it weird that I can't remember the name of any move on earth, but I remember the name of Hanare's secondary finisher?
Right.
What's with that? Like,
what did Shingo win this match with, Joe? What move?
I don't know.
Yeah, but Hanare's secondary finisher.
I know Hanare's secondary finisher, the Ultima, the full Nelson that he calls the Ultima. That I know. That has brain space in my head. But like no other move in wrestling has brain space in my head. What is the thing that makes the brain work like that? Where that has been retained?
Yeah.
I don't get it. But and I flaunt it too. I talk about this fucking Ultima every time this guy wrestles because I want to show off that I know what that's called. But he worked for that very early. He usually doesn't go for it till a little later, but within the first 5 minutes, he was going for it. So it was built around Hanare trying to beat this guy with the move that he uses to beat the Young Lions, which might not be a great idea against Shingo, but hey, that was his plan. That was his plan. Didn't quite work. I might have worked towards the Streets of Rage if I were Hanare, but maybe it's just Hanare moves that I have committed to memory.
Yeah,
maybe
now you know the Streets of Rage. Well, that works because that hits your sensibilities as a.
Well, yeah, he looks like a goon on Streets of Rage.
Right.
He looks like one of the parade of goons that you have to beat up in Streets of Rage. So that makes sense. Anyway, yeah, great match. Shingo puts him away, wins the title, and hold that thought because I think he has an interesting defense. David Finlay defeats Yoshihashi in a match that was way better than I thought it was going to be. Finlay, I think, had a better G1 than maybe some heel diggers want to give him credit for. I love his sequence where he does the buckle bombs, and Yoshihashi had a great counter to that sequence where it looked like it was the beginning of the end, but he came flying out of the corner with the is it flying knee or flying elbow or something. But look, Yoshihashi, if nothing else, will work hard in a spot like this. He's never a guy that's not going to work hard. Doesn't always land or work, but here I thought it did. I thought it was the second best match on the show. Maybe I really like that Goto Kid thing from start to finish. But anyway, that's just nobody cares. That's just splitting hairs. But and Finlay retains and he'll face Goto next. Any thoughts on this?
I thought it was okay. I've seen a lot of people that really liked it. I know it's doing well on Cage Match, and you seem to have liked it a decent amount as well. I'm not all the way
favorite match, huh?
I think it is. Let me see. It was as of a couple of days ago. Let me click around here. It is still the top match on Cage Match for this night.
Wow. So. Over Shingo and Hanare.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised.
I was surprised by that too. But I don't know. I thought it was okay. I didn't hate it. I I guess that you can count me as one of the heel diggers with David Finlay. I don't quite see it yet. I'm not.
You hate this motherfucker.
I'm not. Yeah, he's had a lot of time to win me over, and he's had a lot of years where he hasn't done shit in that position. So I'm glad he throws some backbreakers now and does some buckle bombs. It's not enough for me to think that this guy's any good anymore. So it's going to take a little bit more. There's been years and years and years and years of disappointing matches from this guy, and it's going to take a lot for me to buy in again. And he's working better. I will say his working style is getting better as he's just now throwing bombs. He has adjusted, but he's not quite there for me
He's
yet.
got cooler offense for sure now. There's
Definitely.
no doubt about it.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I'm not going to dig my heels in on that. I'm just not sure I'm really engaged with it very much just because he does a couple backbreakers now. It's like, you know what I mean? I'm not all the way there just yet. He has improved for sure. And I also don't give a fuck about this title. And I also don't really give a fuck about Yoshihashi. So it's hard to be like, because the match was a lot. You had to be relying on like the underdog story of Yoshihashi trying to, get back, not necessarily revenge over David Finlay, but more or less just kind of Kobe was where he fell down and did the joking thing where he fell down on the ramp and hit his head or whatever. So the idea is here he's trying to right the wrong and try to, he was embarrassed before the last time he was in this building and now he's trying to win this title in this building. But I don't know. I don't really care that much about Yoshihashi. I don't care at all about the global heavyweight title, and I'm not quite there yet on Finlay. So that's where I come from and why I maybe didn't like this match nearly as much as everybody else did. But I thought it was good. Or I guess I'll go to okay to good, somewhere in that range there. But did not think it was like the match of the night on any level whatsoever, which it seems on Cage Match it is.
I didn't think it was the match of the night, but I think I liked it a lot more than you did. Tetsuya Naito over Great-O-Khan. Naito's really hard to work with.
Z's. A lot of Z's in this match. This was boring as fuck.
Okan tried to grapple early to build it around mat wrestling early. Did you notice that?
Uh-huh.
And then it got a little messy. The spot where Naito was supposed to do the Rana off the top, they kind of both slipped off the ropes. They had to set it back up, and then it's Naito is very tricky to work with at this stage, so it's a challenge. So the match was just a match. What Cage Match think it is? I thought it was like
they didn't love it. It's 6.17 for this match. So some people liked it a little bit more than others, but not. It's weird because a lot of the review, I think people don't know scoring because there's one guy that's got this like very negative review about it, and then he gave it a 7. It's like.
There's always an element of that on Cage Match.
Yeah,
I think when you get enough votes, it comes out in the wash.
Right. But
I think that rating is fair enough.
What I will say about this,
a little higher than I might have gone, maybe, but
yeah, for sure. What I will say about this though is Great-O-Khan didn't feel like he felt like he belonged in the main event, and that's good. That when I was watching this, I was like, yeah, this guy feels like he could be a main event.
He had the aura.
So if they want to get him on a level where he is, and a main event level guy. Consistently, they can do that. We were kind of worried about that at the beginning of this year. Is it ever going to happen for Great-O-Khan? And it's kind of happening. He's in this main event or whatever. But if they do want to turn that, flip that switch or whatever with him, I think he can do it. I think he can be a main event level guy. I just don't. Yeah, we don't need to see him and Naito having 30-minute matches anymore. And I don't know if we need to see Naito having 30-minute matches anymore because this guy is it's getting rough. It's getting very rough.
Well, I don't think you're going to have that many more. I think he's wrapping up.
I think so too.
As a top guy, but the problem is they need him to draw.
They need him for Wrestle Kingdom. I think he's still in that main event of Wrestle Kingdom, no doubt about it. I don't know what.
Let's transition to that because I think I look. It's conspicuous to me that they've never done Naito versus Hiromu. So is that your Wrestle Kingdom main event? Whether it's for the title or not. Doesn't have to be for the title.
It doesn't necessarily have to be for the title, no. I think that's probably your main event, yeah. I think Naito's in no matter what, I'll lock in Naito in the main event, and I don't know who the other guy. It's not Zack Sabre Jr., I'll tell you that.
Because they're having the back-to-back shows, remember?
Right.
I just think that because of that, you don't necessarily have to have a title match. So I think Zack can still win at King of Pro Wrestling. It doesn't make any sense to have Zack lose at King of Pro Wrestling and then show up at Royal Quest and be like, I gave it my best, guys. Right. Now on to Sonata.
Sorry, guys. I tried and I failed, but I still love you and hopefully you still love me. Yeah, that
this Sonata, I'm going to tap it out tonight, boys.
Right. Here's my cheeky finisher name. I have a submission name it's an old song lyric from a Clash song, but here I am. Right. I'm going to take Sonata down or whatever. Yeah, that's not,
So I feel like Zach is going to win and then, go into Wrestle Kingdom season as the champion. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to headline Wrestle Kingdom, right? So It's like they've never done Hiromu and Naito, and I think, and I've always questioned, every time that anniversary show would come around, I'd be like, when Naito was champ, I'd be like, how are they not fucking doing it? And maybe they've been saving it for a rainy day, and there's been no rainier day than the current state where they haven't really elevated anyone to a Wrestle Kingdom main event level, and this would be the time. And then you do whatever you're going to do with Zach. He can work a title match. You don't want to do it underneath, but he can work the title match the next day, right?
Just integrate him. Yeah, you integrate him with an AEW talent or whatever for a title match.
Yeah.
Very easy to do.
Yeah, for Ospreay or something. It's like, or whoever the fuck. So I don't know. I feel like that's the path. I don't think Zach can lose at King of Pro Wrestling because it just really takes the air out of Royal Quest. So I think he's going to win the fucking title. Mystico versus Hiromu on that show.
Yeah, that's a working.
That's
you
got to
get working
Cup
boots
champion.
On. That is the Opera Cup champion for sure.
Is MLW going to be okay with their middleweight champion and the Opera Cup holder?
You're
laying
right.
Down for Hiromu.
You're right.
The politics.
Maybe it'll be a doubled count out or something. What I mean, to kind of keep it alive.
Yeah, the politics. Like back when the AWA champ would wrestle the NWA champ, and they'd have to do like a brawl to the back and do a double count out. I feel like that's what it's because I don't know.
Yeah, Mystico's not much of a JOB guy these days, or ever really. So yeah, I'm not surprised. I would be. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting match.
Yeah, it's like Bob Backlund versus Rick Martel in a AWA versus WWF. You can't. No one. You got to do the fucking non-finish. Connors and Maloney defend against Kevin Knight and Kushida. Whatever.
MLW star Kevin Knight. This is a MLW studded affair here.
Well, the
Kevin
world
Knight
never stops.
This is a possible Boomaye fight. Did he accepted it, right? I think he accepted his entrance into the Boomaye Fight Club.
Oh, listen, Rich. Spoilers.
I survived. Well, that's spoilers. We're talking about it later, but yes, you're right.
That's true.
We could do both. I think we could review both shows at the same. We can preview King of Pro Wrestling and review Pit-Fighters at the same time. I think it's innovative podcasting.
Pit-Fighters stunk.
It was really bad. Yeah, it was really bad. And luckily, that review, I'm not too worried about it because I think we can get it done in like 3 minutes because it was pretty horrible.
Okay, listen. Enough about this junior tag title match that we probably haven't seen 15 times, but I feel like we've seen 15 times. I want to talk about TMDK defending the tag team titles against Bad Luck Fale, Boo, and Caveman Ugg.
Yeah, what? Where did this come from?
Caveman Ugg in New Japan.
What is happening? How did we get here?
Just enjoy it.
I know I'm here. I'm with it, but how did we get here though?
I don't know, but I'm okay with it.
Because I woke up that day and I'm like scrolling through our Discord, I'm looking at Twitter or whatever, and all of a sudden I see Caveman Ugg and Bad Luck Fale, and I'm thinking, this must be something from 2018 or something, some past image or whatever. No, it's yesterday. Bad Luck Fale is back. I mean, when's the last time he's been in mainland New Japan Pro Wrestling? It's got to be a while, right? Did you look that up, or let me see if I can look that up?
He's bringing Caveman Ugg with him, so
you're with it, yeah.
I'm with it. I'm a big Caveman Ugg guy.
Oh, of course.
No, I have been for a long time.
I know you have. I know it. No. I'm not doubting it. I'm not doubting it at all.
Why do you think I'm lying?
Last time he was there was World Tag League 2023. So it was December of 2023. So it wasn't that long, but it was about a year ago. He was with Jack Bonza in the World Tag League. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
Jack Bonza.
What was your favorite match they had?
Oh, my God.
What was there?
To pick just one would be impossible. So I will.
Well, maybe he's going to listen. Maybe he'll be in with, if he's in there with Caveman Ugg.
Testing the waters?
I promise
Tag League.
I'll watch more than I watched of him in Bonza. I could promise you that. could they win these tag team titles from their oceanic mates in TNT
certainly
here?
Yeah, certainly.
Why not? Let's strap up. I would love Caveman Ugg to be on the New Japan title history. Right?
Of course, yeah.
That'd be something else. Caveman Ugg. Look, they did crazy shit in other eras like this. But it does mean, see, the rub is we have to watch Bad Luck Fale as well.
Yeah. Maybe he'll try. Because he's got his...
Come
on.
on.
I know.
What the fuck's wrong with you? He's not
sorry.
trying. He's got the shirt on that says "Pin me, pay me" again, or whatever.
Right. Oh yeah. What was it? I had a whole when we were still doing the New Japan book. I wrote like 9 paragraphs about it. I was like, "Fuck you," for wearing that stupid shirt. I forget what it was. It was just like Job and I forget
it was
what
like
it was.
The Job Squad shirt, like "Pin me, pay me," or as long as the check clear. I don't.
It was something like that. No, it was like something about like
breaking fucking nonsense.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I don't remember what it was, but it was like fuck them, pay me, or fuck them, pin me, or something like that. I don't remember what it was. It was
fuck them, pin me, pay me. Yes, it was like, dude, you don't have to book this guy. Like if he doesn't want to be there and he just
right,
no one's gonna miss him. Shingo against Oiwa. Do you just have Oiwa beat him for the title?
Fuck yeah. Absolutely.
I know your answer.
Yes.
Your answer is fuck yeah. Absolutely.
And that's why you would have Shingo win this too, because Shingo's a guy that's a big win. It's like a big scalp, but also it doesn't matter.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
not. Hanari's not. Hanari. He's a bigger win than Hanari.
Absolutely.
Is how I see it. And you could even, could you do a program out of it? But then Shingo has to win it back if you do a program. I don't know if that's the worst thing either, though. So, yeah, I knew your answer was going to be fun. You're going to be annoyed if Oiwa doesn't win. I guess we'll see. Jeff Cobb. Now, why the fuck are they doing a 3-way?
I don't know.
Ren Narita, Yota Tsuji. Narita, I guess he's coming back from the injury. The TV title, nice little gimmick, 15-minute time. Why are we doing a fucking 3-way?
Gotta do a 3-way.
And now listen, this isn't the show for it, but I'm annoyed that they're doing Ospreay, Takeshita, Ricochet.
Mm-hmm.
That's annoying too. I Wrestle Dream. I don't understand. See, there's no logic in Takeshita ruining that match and then
earning a
giving
shot.
him a title.
Yeah, then earning a shot.
We used to have standards, Rich.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have some standards in this thing. I don't want a 3-way here. I don't. I'd be just fine with Cobb versus Yota Tsuji. I don't need Ren Narita, period, if I'm being completely honest, in my life at all. So, yeah, I don't know. I hate that match. I don't want to watch it. Phantasmo, Tanahashi, and Shota Umino versus Evil, Kanemaru, and Yujiro. So why not? Where's Yano and Bolton? Why not just another title match?
Yeah, where are they? They're not on the show.
Well, Yano's got something better to do. Like, what's he doing?
I don't know. Yeah, where's Bolton at?
What's that trickster up to? We know he's not getting booked in AEW. So what is Yano up to?
I don't know.
What's he doing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Weird.
He was jumping to GLEAT. Maybe he was jumping to GLEAT.
Okay.
That'd be fine. He should jump
Deal.
to GLEAT, actually.
Deal.
Yeah, he should jump to GLEAT.
Dookie, a show. We discussed that. No interest. David Finlay versus Goto.
This is the match that could turn me on Finlay. This could turn me on Finlay because Goto's going to go out there and work his ass off, and they're both going to throw bombs. This could do it. This could be the one that finally I will come on the show and admit that I enjoy David Finlay now. This could be it.
And then Naito Zach, which we've discussed.
Right. I
got to be a title match.
Yeah, I think Zach's going to win this here. Now, will he have the title up until Wrestle Kingdom? That's another possibility that he loses the title before Wrestle Kingdom. But I like your theory too, that he can win the title and that you can still, make Wrestle Kingdom about Naito and Hiromu, but you don't have to involve the title in it.
No, you headline Wrestle Dynasty or whatever it's called. Fucking Forbidden Door Japan. What is it called? Forbidden
I think it's
Door
Wrestle
Japan,
Dynasty.
Wrestle
No, I don't think it's
Dynasty?
called Forbidden Door Japan. I think it's called Wrestle Dynasty, yes.
You stick them on the Wrestle Dynasty main event against insert here. Doesn't matter. Biggest star AEW is willing to have lose. Okay? And they have a preview tag the day before underneath Hiromu and Naito. Very simple. So if it's Will Ospreay, for instance, you do Zack Sabre Jr. and Rohei Oiwa versus Will Ospreay and fucking Kyle Fletcher. You know what I mean? Like something along those lines. Or you put a more obvious pin eater in there if you want to, because obviously you'd want Ospreay, if he's the challenger, or whoever the challenger is, should win the tag. So maybe you don't do Oiwa. Maybe you put who else in TMDK? They don't really have another heavyweight.
Kosei Fujita, yeah, they don't have many other heavyweights there.
They have Fujita, Robbie Eagles,
Shane Haste,
and Nichols. You're not going to do one of that. You get the idea, though. You could do a 6-man and in fucking Nichols or something, or pin one of the juniors.
Is Bad Dude Tito still a card-carrying member of TMDK? There you go. There's your answer.
Yes,
no, I'm kidding.
Bad Dude Tito, or a 6-man, and you pin Fujita or Eagles. Whatever. So that's what you do, and then you main event with the IWGP title match the next night. So, because you're going to need a big hook for that too. So that's they're doing Tokyo Dome back to back again. So it's like without the Wrestle Kingdom branding. So I don't know. I feel like that's how they're going to play this out, because Zach has to win. And then Sonata's a perfect first defense of a guy you could just beat. Nobody cares about Sonata anymore. Yeah. We tried that. It didn't work. He's just a guy, so you could beat him. So anyway, that's how I think it's going to play out. When is King of Pro Wrestling anyway?
King of Pro Wrestling is the 14th, so we got some time.
Got a little
still.
while.
Yeah. We can do a larger preview next week if we really want to. But I thought throw it in
I got to preview this 2 weeks in a row.
No. We don't have to preview it next week. No, it's just I figured it was a lighter week in wrestling content, so it'd be a good idea to jump in on that. But let's do Pit-Fighters real quick. MLW.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. Terrible. Yeah, it was terrible. What was funny about the show is clearly they didn't have a lot of content for the show. So how many times did we get Slaughterhouse promos? Every match would end, and then we would get Joe Dabrowski being like, "There's no standards. There's no," it's like, it's perfect. It's like I forget the quotes that he used, but we had the same commercial for Slaughterhouse played like 9 times on this show, where it's like, it's inhuman. People are gonna go out there and kill one another. It's just the same thing over and over again. For the Slaughterhouse promo, and then watching that and then knowing that the show's canceled, I was like, oh my God, this is bad. But the show itself was pretty horrible. They obviously they tried to do a couple of, they were all themed matches. It wasn't all, they were
all stips, except for Fish and Knight.
Right. Bob Fish, the best unit, the best part of MLW continues to be the Rogue Horsemen, by the way.
Absolutely.
Brett Ryan Gosselin is actually good now. I think his promos are pretty good.
He's growing on me. He's great as the guy who cuts the promos, who the heat is going to be getting their hands on him and beating him up.
Yeah.
It's like when a big baby face finally gets their hands on him. I thought that I'll say some nice things. I thought the Barrio Brawl with Matthew Justice and Jesus Rodriguez was shockingly better than I thought it was.
It was good. The best part about it is so they start the match and Matthew Justice attacks Jesus Rodriguez on the ramp. So the fans start booing Matthew Justice because fucker, he just attacked this guy on the ramp. Yeah, so the fans are going, "Hey, Zeus, hey, Zeus, hey, Zeus," the entire time. And Christian Colon and Joe Dabrowski have to be like, the fans have a split crowd here, but some of them seem to be on Jesus Rodriguez's side for some reason, while 100% of the crowd is going, "Hey, Zeus, hey, Zeus, hey, Zeus." I mean, everybody was chanting the whole match for Jesus.
Split crowd.
And then Christian Colon's like, "Oh, a couple fans out there seem to be really into Jesus Rodriguez." It's everybody. The whole crowd is into him. And then they finally realized, you know what? Fine. Let's just pretend that the fans are all into Jesus on this night. Because they were. They were like, you know what? No, this guy got attacked on his way to the ring. We're rooting for Jesus Rodriguez. And they went out and took some big bumps. So credit to Jesus Rodriguez for taking some big bumps here. And this was fine.
Yeah. Janai Kai and Del Miexo in the Taekwondo match.
What do I have to do? Where's Shanae Rochelle or Renee Michelle or whatever the fuck her name? Where's she? I'm done with Del Miexo. I don't want any more Del Miexo.
No more.
I want no more Del Miexo. She's horrible. Go be with the other C star and leave you alone. Right?
See yourself out.
Yeah, God, I don't know where the other C star is, but go wherever she is. I'm done with Del Miexo.
Yeah. We had Donovan Dijak attack the jobbers. And
but they were shoot jobbers. There was a they came out and actually I thought this was a good gimmick. They came out like it was fucking like rings or whatever. So you have like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu versus boxing match. You have Danny Stratos.
It was like an old school UFC style fight. Like,
yeah. It was like two guys in different fight disciplines getting together. So it's Danny Stratos and Randall Hoyce getting out there and then they're having this match. I'm like, who the fuck are these guys? What's happening here? And then like the
Randall
countdown
Hoyce. I didn't notice that. Like the Hoyce Gracie.
Randall Hoyce. Randall Hoyce came out there and
Randall Hoyce.
And I'm watching this. I'm like, what the fuck? Why is this being booked? Who are these guys? And then, like, you know, the doomsday clock went off. And I went, oh, I see. I get it. But I thought at one point, Court was just like, he just found these shooters on the side of the road. And we're like, get out there and shoot for me. But
what I was thinking was, I'm like, I was doing the Star Trek The Next Generation meme where the bald guy is like putting his hand up, like, what the fuck? You know that meme I'm talking about? Course. I'm like, we all know that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is going to beat the boxing guy. He's just going to take him down and choke him out.
Right, we found that out. We found that out from UFCs 1 through 15 until people realized, okay, we should all just be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. The fight disciplines, we have discovered the best fight discipline, and it is BJJ, unfortunately.
It's not boxing.
It's not boxing or Taekwondo or Karate or any of those. So.
Karate. No. So, and then I felt like a fool because I'm like, oh, of course someone's going to.
Oh, you thought you were going to. I kind of wanted the freak fight. I kind of liked it. I kind of liked the idea.
Yeah.
The guy with the gloves, you know, being like, all right, let's get out.
Yeah. Yeah. God. But Dijak is just, I don't know, man. He just, waiting for calls that are never going to come. And he's going to bide his time here in MLW.
Waiting for New York. He wants New York or Jacksonville to call him, and I don't know if New York or Jacksonville are calling anytime soon. So,
and none of the, you know, if they're scouting this work, I don't think that he's swaying them either. So he has not been great. Alex Kane wins the Atlanta street fight. Over Brett Ryan Gosselin. Taipei taped fist death match.
One quick thing. Alex Kane did have a great quote earlier in the night. He said, "Get this Ellen DeGeneres looking bitch out of my ring."
That's a great line.
I was like, hell yeah.
Great line.
And Gosselin with the face going, you know, like he put his head up so that everybody could see that he looked exactly like Ellen DeGeneres. It's so perfect.
Right.
He gets it. He gets it, man. It's great.
He does. He looks like Ellen DeGeneres mated with Kazuchika Okada.
Yes. It's the horrible love child of Ellen and Okada, yeah.
And Okada. That's what he looks like. Akira Kwan defeats Akira
Kwan versus Akira.
Ikuro Kwan defeats Akira in the Taipei death match. Now, this was no Axel versus Ian Rotten.
No. No.
They did a lot of stuff that didn't involve the Taipei taped fist.
A lot of grappling, a lot of grapples, a lot of suplexes, a lot of hip tosses. It's like, brother, your fists have glass in them. Use those.
You dipped your fists in glass. I want to see you beat each other with the taped glass.
Well, and then Akira was throwing like elbow strikes. And even Dombrowski is like, well, that's a bold strategy when you're in a Taipei death
glass
match.
taped to your hand.
Right. Don't use the elbow. Yeah, maybe use the fist.
They worked hard, though. And, you know, Contra gets the dub on this night as Akira continues to battle these men.
Mm-hmm.
They will battle forever. Valet Tudo rules. Matt Riddle versus Tom Lawlor. I think a lot of us have been waiting for Riddle versus Lawlor, the former MMA men. I didn't want to see it this way, though. Mm-hmm. I thought this sucked. I didn't like this.
Yeah, I thought it was no good either.
And then Mr. Saint Laurent turns on Tom Lawlor. Right?
Fired him. Is that it? Is that it for the Tom Lawlor and MLW? What do you think?
It's it for him in the World Titan Federation. Yeah. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's he's been removed from the World Titan Federation. Now, is he going to come back and feud with Dijak? Is he going to come back and feud with who else is in the world? Minoru Suzuki? No, he's in Contra.
Yeah, he's Contra unit. Yeah.
Who else is in the WTF? Davey Boy Smith.
Davey
Jr.?
Boy Smith, yeah.
Is he going to come back and battle his former stablemates? I don't know. But Riddle keeps his title challenge that he won at Battle Riot by defeating Tom Lawlor in a very low effort.
Very low
Valley
effort.
Tudo rules match.
Very low effort.
And we don't have Slaughterhouse to preview, which
No.
I don't, I thought we were going to have like 5 straight weeks of MLW.
I know.
We're breaking. I mean, we could talk about it. There's nothing stopping us, really. What's stopping us from talking about MLW next week other than us?
Other than us. You're right. We
can break down the roster. We
could preview the show that I'm going to in November. They don't have everything, but they have some announcements. They have new announcements. We could talk about them. There's plenty to talk about in MLW. That will never stop.
Fighters, though, I feel bad for anyone who's heard us reviewing MLW and praising it, and then they said, "You know what? I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try
Pit-Fighters. I'm going to see what Pit-Fighters is for me."
Remember the awful video game Pit-Fighters?
Oh, so bad. We were late on time last week, so I couldn't talk about it. But I wanted to talk about how, because it was cool. They used the MLW Pit-Fighters logo was the old Pit-Fighters video game logo.
Yes.
That game sucked so much, and I remember being so excited about it as a kid. I rented it one time because you see the graphics.
The height of Mortal Kombat.
You see the graphics on the back, and they're like the real characters. You know what I mean? And it kind of and you're like, oh shit, this looks fucking great. And you fire it up, and it sounds cool, and you're like, oh baby, let's go. It looks cool, and your first fight goes on, and it's fucking horrible. It's so bad. It's just terrible.
Pit-Fighters. Yeah.
Terrible game.
Wasn't a good game.
No.
And this wasn't a good show.
Yeah, it perfectly represented the video game. So, all right.
You know what just occurred to me? I got to plan these post-flagship meals a little better because I'm staring at my kitchen. And I made mussels marinara tonight. That's not the best meal to eat reheated at midnight.
No, that's a bad one.
Marinara.
Yeah,
that's a bad job out of me.
That's a fresh meal.
That's a fresh meal. That you don't want to reheat mussels marinara at midnight.
I don't reheat any fish. I have a very reheating fish thing that I can't really get down with.
It's just sitting on the stove, collecting bacteria for the last 6 hours. This is a poor idea.
This is not great. Yeah.
This is a poor idea. What I'm definitely not going to be doing is prying open the ones that didn't open on the initial cook. I'm not rolling those dice under these circumstances. Sometimes I'll roll that dice. Tonight is not one of those days. Maybe I should eat something else.
Yeah, or you could put an extra couple minutes on the microwave. I do that sometimes where I'm like, how long's this been out for? I'll do it.
Makes you feel a little better.
I'll do 2 more minutes on the microwave. That'll probably cook anything out. That doesn't sound appealing to me. I'll be honest. That sounds like a terrible meal to have at 11:30.
This sounds awful at midnight. I should just opt for like a sandwich.
Yeah, go for a sandwich, a can of soup or something like that. Yeah, something.
Yeah. Something. I got more of that clam chowder I talked about.
Oh, no, we didn't talk about it on the air. You just burped before we went on the air yesterday.
And I was like, oh, that tastes like the clam chowder I just had. You see, that's the same problem. I can't eat that at midnight either.
No, that's a bad midnight meal too. Yeah, you're fucked. You better just eat a sandwich, man. Just make sure it's not boar's head.
Salad.
I had a big salad the other day. I had a big NXT salad. That was great.
I usually do a big salad after we do the instant reaction live for the AEW pay-per-views. So that's like a big salad at like 2 a.m.
Yeah, there's nothing like it, and nothing hits like a big salad.
All the accoutrements.
Yeah,
it's might do big salad.
Good croutons, get some seeds in there. I don't know if you do seeds or anything like that. I like to put little sunflower seeds and stuff like that.
Very heavy on the crushed red pepper and these mussels too. A little late for that.
Well, it's a little late for us. So
it looked good at 6 o'clock.
Well, you'll figure it out.
TLB enjoyed it. He came clean plate club. Came down with a clean plate.
There you go. That's all that matters then, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would have liked to enjoy it. I would have liked to.
You got a job to do for some reason. You decided to do this instead. Could have been eating mussels marinara with your wife, but instead you're talking about MLW Pit-Fighters with me at 11:22 p.m. on a Thursday.
That's my nickname in the bedroom too. Mussels marinara.
Mussels marinara. All right. I was gonna say pit fighter. Explain. But anyway, that is it for us. That is Joe. I am Rich. FlagshipPatreon.com for all of our bonus content, reviews, written columns, additional audio, instant reaction live from last night as well for AEW Dynamite 5-year anniversary. Don't stay up for the WWE Bad Blood instant reaction live. That is not happening. So don't get on that $10 tier and refresh on Saturday waiting for Bad Blood. That's not going to happen, unfortunately. But we'll be back very soon with Wrestle Dream, though. AEW Wrestle Dream instant reaction live on Flagship Patreon.com. But anyway, plenty of other stuff available for you at FlagshipPatreon.com, as well as VoicesOfWrestling.com and our YouTube page as well. I always try to recommend that as well, YouTube.com/Voices of Wrestling. And that I think that's it for us. So that is the show. I'm Rich. We'll talk to you again next time. Take care. Bye.
Hello, Voices of Wrestling listener. Dave Ryan here. Have you ever wondered to yourself, how many hidden gems are hidden away inside the last years of World Championship Wrestling? Have you ever asked yourself how many tenuous gags can be made about the name Mike Enos? And have you ever thought about what it sounds like for two Irishmen to interpret a very chaotic company through its B show? The answers to all this and more are just a click away. Check out Days of Thunder every second Thursday on the Voices of Wrestling podcast network.